To order. First on the agenda is approval of past meeting minutes. Krista, do you have any for us? If not, we can get that.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
Can you pull them up on the, I have not had a chance to review them. You can pull them up on the screen. We can get these approved and
Yeah.
onto the next agenda item.
They were long because we had, what, 5 site plans or something?
Yeah. I recall the decisions quite thoroughly.
Yeah, they all got approved,
Yep.
but there were conditions around it.
Right, a handful of them.
Mm.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I can't access the documents shared on SharePoint for some reason.
Huh.
But all good. Yep, looks great. If you want to just slowly scroll through. Anybody else need to look at it on the screen?
I do, because I also can't access it.
Okay, if you could just make it as, the screen as big as you can.
There you go.
Good. Yep. Yep. Yeah, you can go to the next page. Are you good with that?
Is that the one where you asked for a fence?
That one, that was the one I believe they asked for, we conditioned it on a bunch of screening, arborvitae along the existing fence line. And additional screening around the utilities, the addition of new utilities.
Yep.
Walker Road, right? Is that the official title of the HDC, Olmsted Historic District Commission?
Yes.
Oh,
Well, no, it's just the Historic District Commission.
It's the Historic District Commission, and yeah, you take the Olmsted out.
If I take the Olmsted out, I guess.
Because the Historic District Commission also sits over the Fish House, the train depot, and the cemetery.
Right. Anything that's a historic district. Okay.
okay.
That's Manson Road. With an N.
Charles?
Looks good. Aspen Road. Krista, did you write these minutes?
I wrote the decisions and then.
Whoever wrote them gets major props for accurately describing the
Yeah.
intensive comments and constructive comments
Yeah.
that Jer made on the roof line. So
Yeah,
props to
Yeah,
whoever wrote that.
yeah, they're from the decisions.
Yeah,
No, but they're well worded, thank you.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Five. Looks good. Keep going to the other business. Quinn. Perfect.
That's all.
Is that it? Okay.
Well done.
I think other than that minor administrative change you just made, they look good.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, looks good.
Okay.
Thank you, Krista. Next on our agenda, we have our friends from the Renewable Energy Committee. Climate Action Resilience Committee. We-
I do remember.
Yes, I vaguely, at town meeting? Perfect. We have our friends here to present on potential solar bylaw research and initiatives that they have done some research on. And I believe some of our TV friends here have a microphone for you to use. So if you want to introduce yourselves, welcome, by the way, and you can walk us through your presentation, and we can have a discussion thereafter.
May I ask
First
you
of
a
all-
quick question?
Sure.
If we turned this, would this be easier to see? Not turned it, but I mean straightened it up a little bit?
Yeah, because
Oh,
it
is it
is,
hard for you guys? to
It's
read?
just, this one is brighter than this one.
yeah,
and I
this
don't
one
know
has a
if this-
lot of glare. Don't know if it.
Does it? Does the screen down here go angle anymore?
Mostly just kind of stays like
Okay,
how it is.
so it can't angle
Okay.
any?
Is
Okay.
there a brightness on this that could be increased?
Well, we got glare from the light.
Yeah, the lights are brutal, these right up here.
Can,
I can just watch this, oh, wait a second.
Yeah,
Why don't we turn this one?
Yeah, we could like scoot it out.
I can turn off one of the back.
I just.
Okay, if you-
that's
can
the
you
one
take
I'm
out
going
just the
with.
front or not?
You can see.
Is that going to be better for you, Joe?
that will work for me if that works.
Okay.
It's gonna look odd because we're all gonna be staring off to the.
That's fine.
That's
There's nobody else
okay.
here except for our
Okay.
friends over here, so,
I think it's fine. Thank you very much.
thank you. Can hand it over to you, if you guys want to introduce yourselves and take us through your presentation.
Yeah, hi, I'm
Welcome.
Richard Frankel of Grant Road in Swampscott. I'm a member of the Climate Action Resilience Committee. I am impressed with your August 11th meeting, must have gone forever. I mean, just looking at those minutes.
Yeah, it
You
was
must have been here at midnight.
No,
No, we actually, some of them we had
10:15,
seen more than once.
Oh, I see.
So, but all the same, yeah, it was, we had a lot on
Yeah.
that night.
That was quite the meeting.
Fun night.
Yes, it was.
And I have to say that I have sciatica, so I will sit and I'll stand and I'll sit and I stand.
Okay.
All good.
How it feels
All
at
right.
the moment. So one of the things that the Climate Action Resilience Committee is very concerned with, of course, is renewable energy. That's sort of our mandate, is to try to reduce the carbon emissions in Swampscott. And part of that effort is, of course, to increase the amount of carbon-free energy that we generate, if possible. Obviously, you know, that's subject to constraints and costs and so on and so forth. So Watertown has a bylaw requiring solar energy on certain new and major revisions of buildings. And so we used that as a sample, and, no, go ahead, just the next slide is fine. And so we took a look at that. So it applies to large developments. A solar system is required, I need this. When a site plan is required for construction, exterior alteration, relocation, or change in use, certain zoning districts, and buildings of 10,000 square feet or more, or 10 residential units. Now, this is the Watertown
Uh-huh.
one that we used as an example.
and are these ands or ors?
These are ors. Go ahead, next, sorry. Okay, for sites covered, again, there's a Watertown example. For sites covered by bylaw, the solar requirements are for a solar energy system that is equal to 50% of the roof area of all buildings, and for uncovered parking structures, which means not, you know, of ground
With the
level.
garage, in other words,
Yeah,
structure.
garage.
Yeah.
Equal to 90% of the top level. Include roof-mounted or ground-mounted canopy installations, photovoltaics or other systems that harvest solar energy. I think it's photovoltaics right now in this case. Exemptions, the roof doesn't meet certain criteria for a term of pitch and orientation. The roof is shaded for more than half of daylight hours. Roofs with insufficient structural load capacity, not enough combined roof and ground space to meet the requirement. So I asked the Watertown town planner how that had worked out for them, and I asked them how many projects in Watertown have included solar into this code. They have 4 garages that have installed solar systems, and 2 others that are approved but not built yet, about 8 or 9 buildings that install the 50% requirement. And so he said, you know, the taller the building, the harder it is for it to hit the 50% requirement, because, you know, I mean, you've got a tall building and there's not much space next to it. I mean, you know, and you have your mechanicals on the roof, it's hard for them to do that. Have there been any problems related to the requirement? Note the tight line for 50% rooftops. We've seen some designs that are good with keeping up with the height of the garages, okay. And again, what improvements to the code would you recommend? I would consider refining the 50% and how it is calculated. So that was basically his comments. We also ran it by the Attorney General's, you know, for town bylaws, and they didn't really have anything to say about it. It's, you know, they said, you know, there were some minor comments, but it doesn't look like it would run afoul of anything. This is solar cells in Watertown at the Arsenal Mall. Okay, and so those are some links, and then we can go on to look at the one we drafted. Go on to that. And you guys, I think, have commented on that. Go out there.
I was gonna say, it might not let me log in.
I think it's publicly shared, so you can just, anybody.
Well, you attached it to an email to us yesterday or maybe
Is it
today.
okay if I pull up this version of it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of an intro. You know, we have solar energy on our schools, solar cells.
Did we finally put it on the elementary school? 'Cause
No,
know
I don't
it-
think it's done yet.
Okay, what
Yeah.
was the reason for that?
I think there's a holdup with National Grid.
That was my understanding as well,
Yeah.
with the reimbursement or something that they were gonna provide.
It's still being worked. It's still being
Oh.
planned. It's just
Okay.
delayed.
Okay, thank you. I just, made me, yeah, go right ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. You know, National Grid can be a sticking point in some of this stuff. We have to consider that, clearly. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, I sent this around to you guys, and we'd like to work with the planning board, obviously, on, hello,
Sorry, I was only sharing the other window, so I wasn't.
on
sure.
coming up with, a finished product here. So that is a draft,
Mm-hmm.
and, would love to hear your comments and
Second
your
from the
thoughts
top.
on it.
Thank you.
I had like a whole bunch of questions.
Could you
Okay.
zoom that in?
And I don't know if I'm
Well,
gonna-
could you zoom that in,
Yeah.
Krista? And then
I'm
do you
gonna
want to
wait
just walk us
until-
through at a high level the proposed bylaw here?
Yeah.
And then we can get into some
Right.
conversation.
Good idea.
Okay. That's the background, so let's go down to definitions. The device or structural design features, substantial purpose of which to provide collection, storage, blah, blah, blah. So these are definitions. Let me know if you need to go through
I
any
think
of
we're
these.
good on definitions. I think the nuts and bolts of the requirements would be,
Okay.
what we should focus our
All right,
conversation on.
requirements. Development requiring site plan review approval and greater than equal to 10,000 square gross feet or
So,
containing 10 or more residential units. Now, I have a comment there. To me, 10 units sounds kind of low. So I think I would bump that up. I mean, but, I'm looking for you. I'm sure you guys have,
10 seems low or high?
to me, it seems low to make a solar requirement, but it may not be. You guys know more about that sort of thing than I do.
in other words, maybe it should be like for much larger buildings? Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it may be perfectly reasonable. I mean,
Okay.
I put solar cells on my house, and
I'm-
it's one unit.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking just of projects that have come in front of us since I've been here.
Oh, look at-
Our use table is pretty much set at 1, 2, and 8 units,
Yeah.
right? And then above 8. And
Yeah.
we usually don't see above 8 unless it's the Westcott,
Right.
the development of Vinen Square, the Glover family
Right.
Yeah.
overlay. So 1, 2, up to 8, and then 100 units is kind of
So
the.
this
Yeah.
would be over 8, I would assume.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
10, I don't think there would be a negative impact.
Okay, great.
I mean, it depends on the building. I mean, if you look
Right.
at, if it was like something like, a 10,000 square foot building could be like the hot dog place, right? Hobo's. In fact, that's probably 15,000
Mhm.
or more.
Yeah, I think just about the unit count,
Yeah.
that's just the
I
context
think
that
that
we would
unit
have.
count would be.
Square footage is
bit-
different.
Yeah, would be different. And a question about the ground mounted, so that's on some kind of pad, right?
Ground mounted would be canopies, probably.
So nothing that would, their building would have in its yard that would tilt back and forth, like what you see up in the ski resorts where they have all those big panels that kind of tilt to the sun and all that business.
Well, if Plumder wants to put that up, I wouldn't have. But
But I'm
I'm just
assuming,
wondering about setbacks and stuff like that, so,
you're meaning ground mounted as in the steel supported canopy solar panels that like the REI in Framingham, for example, has.
Exactly.
yeah, okay. So that would, I understand.
I'm not sure I'm a big fan of, canopies. I'm not sure they're efficient, and I'm going to look into that a little bit more, because I think personally, we could take the money from Swampscott and invest it in a solar farm somewhere out where land is cheaper. We do these things all the time, and that would be a more effective use of resources. So I'm going to look into that a little bit more.
Okay. Why don't you keep walking us through
Yep,
some of the
go
nuts
ahead.
and bolts of the bylaw?
So you said site plan review approval, so that we don't, so we do like special permit, I guess you're probably meaning that it's in our site plan special permit criteria.
Okay?
I'm guessing that that's what
Yeah,
We'll talk about that after,
Right,
so
right,
go
that would be
ahead.
something you guys would know.
yeah,
Yep.
I think it's
So-
targeting new construction or
Okay.
major
Or
renovation,
major
so like,
renovation, yeah, yeah.
anything that would enable
It
you
would be
to
a
like
special permit most likely.
review that,
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
So obviously, there has to be an assessment in order to comply with this thing, so that's the contents of the assessment. And then exemptions. And there are a bunch of exemptions here which I think make it fairly flexible. I would like to keep it flexible so that everybody thinks it's reasonable. You know, whatever decision is made should be reasonable, not dictated by, you know, inflexible wording. So that was the idea of the exemptions. And I think this offers a lot of exemptions, even down to, you know, whether it costs too much.
okay.
And I think is that pretty much the end of it?
That's the end.
So, yeah, so it's a fairly straightforward, fairly simple. Probably doesn't have, I mean, I think it was modeled on Watertown. That's pretty much what theirs
Yeah.
is too. It's fairly straightforward.
So, in terms of the photovoltaic panels, are there just that kind of that one big roof panel, or, you know, I know there's been solar tiles and stuff like that, is that really part of it, or?
Well, it seems to be standard to, you know, standard size solar panels.
Yeah.
They're about 2 by 4 roughly.
So are those, like, how's the technology on those? It seems they've been around for a long time. You know, how efficient are they? I mean, I really don't know much about, you know, if my house has a roof area, let's say of, I don't know, maybe I have 1,000 square feet on my roof, let's say. And so let's say I were to have half of that, 500 square feet covered in solar panels, just for argument's sake. So first of all, like, who pays for that? I guess, is this the homeowner pay for, or the building owner pay for them? And then the building owner, meaning me, would be required to get the assessment, is that correct?
Right.
And who do you get the assessment from?
Well, the solar companies, the people that install this stuff, you know, they give you estimates.
I see,
We've already actually did get an estimate for Vinton Square. They offered to, you know, pay $100,000 a year to the owners of Vinton Square just to put solar cells on the roof of the commercial buildings there.
A little bit of a missed opportunity, you know, for Vinton
But,
Square, but
But
and who offered to do that?
it's another
one of the
independent
solar companies that I contacted.
solar company.
and they-
Even on the residential building? Because I know
No,
that
not the residential, this was
No.
just the
yeah,
commercial stuff.
that's the problem, is that they didn't want to, those structures haven't been modified, you know?
Right,
And in
right.
addition to the roof load,
Right.
I think there are other, you know, somewhat like, you're just dealing with these individual, you know, like Home Goods, I mean, they, you know, and Stop and Shop, they're very much, you know, they're pretty powerful tenants.
Right.
And so I think there are multiple factors that come into it, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's a structure from the 70s, really.
Hmm.
And, yeah, I was thinking about the residential building. Anyway, so go
Oh,
ahead.
right, that's not a major, you know, renovation. I mean, they're not really changing the roof there, I don't believe it.
Yeah, but it's a
No, that's
brand new building.
a new construction.
Right.
I think they're
Well,
planning
the
to have solar.
residential building is new, but
Right.
the old mall is not really being changed much. I don't think it would run afoul of this.
Yeah.
No, just been, the facade has changed a bunch of times,
Exactly.
but the
More of a
building
cosmetic.
itself hasn't, yeah.
Right, cosmetic. Yeah.
I don't think the solar cells weigh a lot. I think they laid less than a load of snow, but that's,
Yeah.
we're not, it doesn't
Well-
apply here because,
So,
Yeah.
one thing that came up, and I'll be quite honest, which is interesting at Vinton Square, because I've thought about that a lot, was the fact that we have, you know, Vinton Square is kind of in this sort of valley between Crown Point and Summit Estates.
yep,
And the people that live there have even mentioned the fact that they can kind of, you know, look down on the shopping center. And there was a lot of concern about reflective glare, because they are kind of directly above. And, you know, I kind of had no answer for that, but, I mean, I think it's a concern of a lot of people that are really far below like that.
Yeah, I would say I live on top of a hill with a house below with solar panels, and it's a non-issue.
exactly. The idea
Yeah,
of a
they're-
solar panel is to absorb as much light as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are not a glare I've never caught
You're right.
glare on.
I've seen solar farms, and if they were reflective, that, some of those could really generate.
Yeah, exactly.
So no, they don't. They absorb.
Okay,
They
That's
do
good to
not-
know.
They do not have the same impact with glare that, that insulated replacement windows do.
Okay.
Where they're melting the siding next door and so forth. That's not happening off the solar.
that's good to know. Now I'll know how to answer that next time I
Right,
get
tell them-
asked.
Tell them it'll reduce reflection.
So, anyway, getting back to my personal example about, I'm interested in cost. Like, if it were gonna, as a homeowner, is there any kind of huge ballpark figure of what it would cost, someone who owned a building and what they could expect to save from it? And I just have a lot of little questions about,
Well, the price of solar panels has come down enormously, okay? And so it's now actually a really cost-effective way to generate electricity, right? So you actually save money by putting solar panels in.
well, I would hope so.
Yeah.
I mean-
Well, you save money enough to pay for the things within a few years.
Okay, and so the person who's putting them on has to pay for them, and then,
And then they collect the revenue from it.
okay,
I have an example, personal example. So we installed solar panels,
Uh-huh.
and it's a small installation because we don't use a lot of electricity. So we had 12 panels installed. It was $12,000 minus whatever rebate effectively cost us $8,000.
yeah,
But I haven't paid for electricity pretty much a few months after we installed them. I started being in the black,
yeah.
So haven't paid for electricity since.
Oh,
But I think the payback period, they say, is typically like 7-year payback.
okay,
So,
that's interesting, yeah.
And for a lot of people that I know that are also making the commitment to using a lot of electricity through heat pumps.
Right,
and
electric
everything
heat
else,
pumps and so forth, right.
It is almost like one without the other. You're in a place where you're zeroed out, but if you go the route of the heat pumps and the electric heat, it really is the leveler in that.
Uh-huh,
Because with the cost of electricity, the efficiency is there, but the actual,
yeah,
it's what balances the cost.
Right.
In that.
interesting.
On the, sort of to build off your question, so with these buildings being, most of the times that this is capturing, these are not owners of the, like, long-term owners of the property. It might be rental units, which is again going to be probably a structure that they would typically, they'd be passing the cost on to the renters. Similarly,
see.
or if you're building condominiums, you're passing that energy cost on. And at this point in time, it is shifting it from the upfront cost is landing on the developer, and the beneficiaries are more likely the renters and the owners. But at the
Okay.
same time, to be able to sell a condo where you are not looking at having expenses that are tied to electric services, and in many of these cases, following the current codes, electric heat and so forth, it is a built-in benefit to what they are selling as a product if it's renting or selling a
Yeah.
unit. So it is sort of, there's not a sum zero, type of thing where it's like, well, these people are suffering because no, they're actually getting a product that is marketable as, here's an expense you won't have on top of your mortgage and on top of your insurance.
So who harvests the energy? Is it National Grid that harvests the energy and then says, oh, you use what you need and we're taking the rest? I mean, so if you produce more energy than you use, what happens to the rest of it?
right, so I kind of bank it. So basically, the electricity that's produced, I use during the day, right? And
Right.
then in the summer, fall, I'm going to be basically banking it. And then in the wintertime, I'm going to be drawing from the grid, from National Grid, and then, offsetting the cost with what I banked in the past.
Okay.
Right.
So,
It's connected to National Grid,
Yeah,
and that's why we're having troubles with, the elementary school, because they have to build out their infrastructure, I guess, to get supply as well
right.
as to provide.
But they, I mean, I was looking at my bill, because I've always noticed that they charge us. I don't have solar panels, okay? But part of, more than half, it's over 15% of my delivery charge is the energy efficiency fee, renewable energy fee, the distributed solar charge and electric vehicle charge. So basically what they're doing is saying, and it says right on there when they explain what the charge is for, it's to recoup the cost of all the renewable programs, to recoup the cost.
Mass save.
Solar, right.
Yeah.
So it's to recoup their costs. So I'm like, wait a minute. It's like you're supposed to be, making, this supposed to be the better thing for the consumer, not start costing everybody. Now, we're paying National Grid so that they don't lose any money. It's just, it's kind of
Yeah.
this crazy thing.
but also.
I'm just trying to understand it. I appreciate your answering my questions.
Yeah, and to take that a step further, if you look at National Grid's gas cost, there's also a delivery.
Yes.
And a cost of fuel. And the delivery is their infrastructure, like the pipelines.
Right.
Which we'll be paying for forever and ever, even though we're supposed to be getting off of gas. So do we want to be paying for that infrastructure?
Right,
For a very long time?
right.
So, but if National Grid came to you and said, hey, I got a deal for you, if you buy this new equipment, we'll give you gas for free forever and ever. I mean, if you think about that with solar's free energy. So it's really the way to go
Yeah.
for the future, even though there's an investment up front.
How long do they last, the panels? Like, is it like after 10 years, do you need to
They're
replace
rated for
them?
about 25 years, but they keep running and going after that.
Okay,
They just go down to.
So they go and
about
go and go.
80%, yeah.
okay.
But yeah, they basically never wear out. And sunlight is
Hmm.
free. So, from an economic standpoint, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It always did make a lot of sense. It shouldn't
So
really
it,
eat
so
all
it could
this.
be a good argument for, I guess we'd get the resistance from the commercial property owners, right? If they didn't want to make the investment, or like,
I think any property, well,
Yeah.
let me rephrase that. Any developer who is,
not-
all we're doing here is adding cost to a
Right,
developer
right.
through bylaws. So I'm sure regardless if it's a commercial developer or a
Right.
residential developer, they're gonna say, you're adding more cost.
So when.
And we'll either take it or we'll
yeah.
pass it on to our consumer, or we
Well,
just won't
It's kind of
develop.
interesting, though.
Yeah.
Because remember, Venen Square, these guys could have made $100,000 doing absolutely nothing, other than making their roof
Available.
suitable for, for solar cells. They would have been making $100,000 a year. They don't provide the solar cells, just to give you the idea of the economics. Somebody's able to pay you $100,000 to put solar cells on your roof, obviously it makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, I think we could also allow them to do that. I think they don't have to do this themselves. They can contract with somebody, and I think that would be the way most of the people would go on that one,
Have any other towns other than Watertown adopted a bylaw like this in the Commonwealth? Or New England, I guess?
I'm not aware of it, but I think, there may be one other, I think. Yeah.
So what if it were, I guess my concern with a bylaw is, so what's the penalty for noncompliance? If it's, if it's a requirement, as it's listed here, for, let's say, I don't know, 20 units or more, 40 units or more, whatever, we don't have many buildings that have more than 40 units in them, even that Glover thing, I mean, it just was the
Dozen
original
maybe,
one.
right.
I mean, they were, 3 buildings altogether, so they were, I don't know, they might have had a few more than 40, so let's just say 20, for example. If they say, no, my roof is gonna look like this, and I have, equipment up there, and there's not gonna be enough room, or, I have no interest in doing that, I'm doing blah, blah, blah instead, I don't know, whatever their argument is, but they say no. Oh, I'm already being forced to do, inclusionary zoning here, so 10% have to be affordable, and now I have to pay an infill fee, and, the,
INI fee.
the INI fee, and now you're gonna make me put solar panels, and so there's that piece of it, and then I think about, well, MBTA zoning, I mean, we have, I'm not too worried about that, because there's not a whole heck of a lot that can get developed. However, it could make a project unaffordable, which would, you know, they'd have to prove it, but it could make a project unaffordable, like a 40B project, for example. So I don't know how they,
I'm not so sure that the cost of this for the 50% of the square footage for a roof being covered, for the properties and the land that we have in this town, this really isn't a huge ask. And the fact that you have structured this so that there are exceptions.
Right.
If you look at some of these exceptions, they allow for, let's use Glover. If those were shed roofs with the roof facing north, they would have an exemption. There are reasons, you know, they're not gonna, this would not lead you to have to construct, you know, a giant system on the roof to get the orientation right. This, you know, there's exemptions built in here. So this is a pretty, I mean, I use this word carefully, but this is conservative for a progressive act, which I really appreciate that, because I think that's the kind of thing that makes it work in many cases. But I'm not so sure that this is, I think that it is conservative enough that it is not going to be something that is triggering people walking away from projects.
Let's talk through that. Let's use the Glover family
yeah,
as a development as an example.
right,
So we've got
For the family.
the Glover multifamily overlay district, sorry,
Right.
the development there. 90 units in Swampscott,
96.
96 units in Swampscott across 2 buildings. We don't allow flat roofs, so we've got part of it gabled and then part of it recessed.
And the gable is shielding
It's-
some equipment on the roof.
Right, so if we
Right.
do it, something like that, we've got high-energy heat pump condensers, electric condensers and compressors up there. How do we also fit solar panels in that area without going to a flat roof, which we don't allow by
I
our
thought we kind
bylaws?
of talked about that when we first
But
reviewed that plan.
look at the exemptions. I mean, this is based on the work that Richard did with Watertown. I think he discovered that that is an issue, because that is where those,
Right.
that's where those systems go. And in Watertown, they were colliding. So if you go back to the exemption page, you'll see that that is called out, that,
Further down.
What about, like, are there any other types of, so this is just focusing on solar panels, like, are there any other kinds of energy systems that
not exactly in there, but.
have been effective, or are we just focusing on the solar panels right now?
They were just focusing on the solar panels. I mean, wind
Okay.
and solar are basically the two that are now actually cheaper than almost any other way of
Yeah.
generating electricity.
And the wind, the turbines are
Were
not
for the
something,
huge
yeah,
fossil fuel lobby, we would have them much more, you know, busy trying to
I hear you, yeah.
get rid of them, unfortunately.
But
Okay.
back to what we were just discussing.
Yeah.
So using that as an example, or using the Vinnon Square residences, whatever we want to call the new building at the mall, same thing, angled roof, and the flat roof that's recessed part of that has the condensers and compressors in it. So on those, we could even look at some of the other multifamily buildings that are over 15 units. They're all designed similarly with all the electrical equipment for the
Pine
heat pumps
streets like that.
on the roof. Pine Street is a great example since we just did that. In all of these developments, where do the solar panels go?
So on Pine Street, I'm gonna sort of call that like an I-shaped building. I was gonna say a dumbbell building, but that's based on this, not
I know what
the
you
design
mean.
of it, but the shape of it.
Sure.
But the two ends of that are sloped roofs, and that there would be the ability to get solar in there, on those surfaces that were appropriately angled. The center part where they're recessed to hold this. And it's complicated because we're playing catch-up. If you look at
Yeah.
the two projects that are opposite sides of the drawbridge, from Revere to Lynn, those two buildings, you can see that the design did not keep up with the technology, because you are looking at all of these units that are on the roofs, and they're completely unscreened.
Right.
And the architects didn't catch up to it. So this is a case, like now, we're fortunate because we don't have that. Maybe we do someplace, but not to that extent where you've got the view. Like, have you all noticed this? Because there's two very carefully designed buildings, and then in came all of the units on the roofs, and it like the one in Revere looks like a cemetery up there.
Really?
You know,
I've seen the buildings,
Look at the roofs.
okay.
There are some
Yeah.
where you see it's very naked and obvious on the roof,
Yeah.
where the,
Oh, yeah, it's
Utilities
a
are?
parking lot of utilities.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. And some of that had to do with the fact that the utilities, you
Right,
know,
weren't-
oh, they're vertical, but they weren't designed for. But I think that there's, I mean, one of the things in all of this that we have to watch as we're talking bylaw is flexibility for progressing through what these systems look like. You know, it's been years now, my daughter was in high school, so like 5 or 6 years ago, I found these amazing project in Brookline, where it was a historic house, and they used solar shingles on it
That's what I was talking about.
that
the tiles,
resembled,
yeah.
they really resembled a slate roof.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't looking, like I was actually looking for something else on this house, all of a sudden it dawned on me that a whole section of this house that was, part of it was slate roof and part of it was this. So technology will keep changing, and sort of the issues around the heat pumps is they've never been designed for visual impact, and that will hopefully come, because there's, you know, sort of
but
what's
in,
it called, virtue signaling now, that you have, look at this ugly thing I have in my house. You know, so,
Right.
you know, some of that'll change. So if there was a way, if we're looking at this, to think about how it might be built into the wording to allow advances in the systems.
I have a few concerns and a few thoughts on moving forward. Concern number one, we just kind of went through, we've got 50% of the roof area. For some of these buildings, we've got 50% of the roof area that's flat, and the rest is gabled. That roof area for most of these is being used by the utilities, so unless we're elevating the canopy above the utilities, or putting them on the gabled side, we're giving up the heat pumps and the all-electric production there to accommodate solar panels.
Right. And a building that's not that big, it just can't have it all on top. I mean, it wasn't, you know.
That is right, unless we go to a flat roof, which is something requires more extensive zoning changes, and I don't
Yeah,
think that's
and
something that's
it's
worth.
not- It's something we got
Got
rid
rid of,
of
right.
a while ago, and
What was
I
the,
don't see it
what was the
coming back.
motivation to get rid of flat roofs? That seems really heavy-handed.
well, outside of the B4 district, it was, I mean, especially, certainly if it was any residential project. We didn't want flat roofed boxes, and, you know, we had never, as you can imagine, we'd never seen a well-designed, anything that was proposed, you know, that could have been an exception, that was so well-designed that we would have said, you know what, this is the exception to the rule here.
Yeah.
So-
Because that to me is really, that's what I would consider very heavy-handed as policy. As someone that grew up in a passive
Well,
solar,
I mean, we have flat
flat-roof
roofs on
house.
Humphrey Street.
Yeah.
Even the B2 district has flat roofs, that's not
Yeah.
prohibited.
No, but I mean, I grew up in a single-family flat-roofed house that was phenomenal.
And you
But
can
it-
still see
Yeah,
there are
but
some in
it's a
town that
little
are
different.
pre-existing, non-conforming, like on Mason Road, that, right around the middle school there.
Oh, to like Walnut, I think, where it's all those cool, it's like, it's a whole
Yeah.
enclave of these really flat, cool houses.
Yeah.
From the same,
50s stuff.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But, you know, it is a case where maybe really hard thinking about even extending the exemptions a little bit more when it's in conflict with other energy
Right,
efficiencies.
right. I mean, that was the comment from Watertown's planner.
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah.
50% was a problem at times, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I would certainly,
50% of a roof is, like, I'm thinking of
of the roof area. Yeah.
one of my neighbors, well, and the other question I have is, what does roof area mean? Is that in plan, or is that, because like, the roof area of this, if I'm measuring from elbow to elbow versus elbow to fingertip to elbow is really different. So I think
Right.
that's something that would need to be defined, because it might, instead of being 50% of roof area, it might be 50% of footprint, because that implies the flat area of the roof. And then you've got a calculation that's a little bit easier, but when I think about houses in the neighborhood, if you have a peaked roof,
Right.
there is a very good chance, depending on the site, that half of that is not pointed in the direction that's gonna be of any value.
Right.
And 100% coverage of the other side of that, just if I draw like a child's drawing of a house, and it's north-south, you've got one side that's great and one side that isn't.
Yeah.
But to call out the entirety of the south side would be problematic. So we might look at what those numbers look like, because that might not be, that's something in the Watertown one, when I looked at it, I was like, that's a little heavy-handed in the sense of, what does that do to design?
So I guess I'd want to ask, what does success look like? Is it anything that even has the sense of, furthering the cause, even if it's not really creating any specific, I'm wondering, what does it, and I don't know how to measure it. I guess that's why I was trying to understand a little better before. I'd want to know, what does a successful bylaw look like? And why would we want to do it? Like, if we have to go to town meeting and sell something.
Yeah, no, it's a good
and
question.
to convince
Right.
town meeting that this is a good idea. What's my argument, or his argument? That I don't have to do it anymore.
Well, in my little preamble, I mentioned the fact that we've done this on our schools, right? So, I
Right.
mean, it's possible to do if you want to, right? It's doable. And I think this is more designed to encourage people to do it. I mean, my ideal way of doing this thing would be to get rid of all these regulations and charge $100 a ton for CO2 emissions, the way it should have been done. Was proposed under Clinton. That's the way it should be done. Then you leave it to the market, and it's like, falling
Cap and
down.
trade.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But we're unfortunately not able to do that because of the lobby I mentioned earlier. And so we have to, encourage, shall we say, in any way we can, this kind of thing. Now, I don't want it to be too expensive, and I don't want it to be impractical, so I really want to throw it at you guys and say, hey, if it's reasonable, require it. If it isn't reasonable, don't require it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd
I
like
mean,
to say.
The motivation is really to offset the cost of electricity, right? Because we're really encouraging
Right.
Everybody to go electric, go heat pumps.
Right.
So, but now that cost is gonna, continue to increase, so this is a way to
Crazy,
offset that
yeah.
cost.
Yeah.
Right.
So as
because
part
you're
of a-
Producing your own,
As part of a dialogue, let me throw out my concerns.
Yep.
And then get your reaction and your reaction, and we can kind of just discuss it and figure out productive next steps to alleviate my concerns or react to them and anybody else's concerns that they might have on the board. One is, I am nervous that doing something like this increases the cost of housing for housing production and makes Swampscott less desirable from a commercial standpoint for commercial redevelopment. We spent a lot of time at town meeting 4 years ago talking about the Vinnon Square.
Every year.
Yeah, but at the Vinnon Square district particularly, with comments about how, oh, we should be requiring this, we should be requiring that, because who wouldn't want to redevelop Vinnon Square? And the sad reality was, well, a lot of people wouldn't, because we have Kimco across the
Right,
street
and
from
who- right,
Swampscott Mall,
No
who,
desire.
we'd say, regardless, the conversation about how Swampscott is not a great place to invest commercially, because half of our 3-mile area and radius is the ocean. So my nerves are that approving something like this makes it less desirable to invest here when I think it's already difficult to get investment in the commercial zone. And on the housing production side, adding this requirement increases the cost of housing. And I'm not sure we have I don't think I've ever sat on this board and approved a condo development, just practically speaking. I don't think. It's always been apartments, rentals. And if
Yeah.
rentals,
Yeah.
if the developer of a rental
Anything
building.
that has an affordable component, with the exception of a couple that were so, luxury market condos that they did a payment in lieu. like
Right.
The White Court, for example.
Well,
But in the 5 years I've been on, almost 5 years I've been on the board, everything's been an apartment. And the reason why I bring that up,
But I think, isn't the one on Eastman condos?
I don't know.
I believe it is, because they were talking about that middle,
yeah, they are going to be condos.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
But on here, that wouldn't be required.
because
We'll talk about the
under,
big-
Well, it's
the big
considered,
buildings.
it's actually considered a commercial building, but it's, it's 6 units. right?
The reason why the ownership, the reason why I bring up the ownership is because if it's an apartment building, the developer's absorbing all of the cost of construction and doing this, and their energy use is minimal and just in the common space. And the owners of or the tenants of the rental units are absorbing all of the electrical cost. But not, unless the cost of development for this portion of the solar is gonna be passed on to them. They're not gonna reap the benefits because it's individually metered.
I do think it's reasonable, though, to step back from this and recognize it's not 100% about cost. It's about moving off of unsustainable practices.
Yeah,
And,
you picture commercial developers.
no, I.
You know what I'm
I
talking about.
I understand that. I mean, this isn't terribly appealing on that level. In a town as developed as we are, the people that are targeting doing projects here, I don't know. I'm not positive that that's really gonna chase people away, because they may find land somewhere, but it's not here with a commuter rail that's 25 minutes into the city, it's not here with 5 beaches, it's not, there's a balance of things like that.
Let me push back on that for a second. The Glover Family District was a 40R for 7 years
At least.
and got nothing until
Nada.
we had to extensively rewrite zoning, and now that's a whole nother conversation we'll get into soon, I'm sure, for projects. So even with areas that can be redeveloped, that have beneficial zoning to redevelop, it doesn't attract redevelopment until
Especially when you
extensive
get developers that,
concessions are being offered.
A lot of developers are not, they're not, unless you are working with a firm that's particularly tuned into these
Technology.
issues, and which makes me start thinking about, can we look at incentive? Is there a different way, instead of, use a carrot instead of a stick type of thing? And,
That there would be some sort of
what-
reward for
Density.
Yeah,
incorporating.
something, I don't know what, but something.
Yeah,
Because whose goals are they? Well, they're the town's goals. Okay, we all adopted this bylaw, okay, so they're our goals. So putting the burden of them on a developer, it doesn't seem fair when half the time they're gonna flip it and walk away. Or at least like Leggett McCall was going to.
but at the same time, I mean, to be honest with you, the flip it and walk away,
But that's who we get a lot of the time. I mean,
okay. But I don't necessarily think that that is best practice.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, I mean, one of my concerns is that this is, from the standpoint of like, what is the relationship between a town and developer, in my opinion, needs to be balanced. And that if we have a town that has a goal, that we identify as being green, we have a town that believes in these modes, I don't think it's a bad thing to be thinking about how do we encourage this? And it's
Right.
like, well, this isn't the cheapest way to build. Okay, it isn't the cheapest way to build, but it's what we're looking for. I am more caught up in when we're talking about a development, like we'll use the the Glover project. When we get a project that is tall, does not have as much roof as it has is densely occupied, by the time we get the panels on, are we, I mean, anything in that direction is positive, but at the same time, realistically, over that many units, getting X amount of panels because of the square footage. And especially if we have to make, realistically, that's where a lot of systems are on the roof. The lot is small, we don't have room
Krista,
for,
I think we have people
Admit.
wanting to get admitted.
we don't necessarily have ground room to be adding them somewhere else. Then we might be in Watertown, like, where Watertown is struggling, So I think there's some great ideas here, and I think that it is fine tuning it. I like the idea of there being something that is encouraging it.
Well, just like we would do, we want, whatever we might want, if we want to convert something to middle-type housing or cottage zoning, I mean, what's our incentive? Why, if that's what we decided we embrace and we want those things to happen, how do we make that, how do we create a bylaw that says, let's help you get there? You know what I mean? Instead of, taking another stick out and saying, and if you don't do this, we're gonna whack you.
Is there a
You know.
way to know what one of the things is like, we're reacting to cost,
No,
but at the same time, I think we have to be careful,
why.
because we don't really know what these numbers look like.
So I guess I don't want it to feel punitive.
Yeah.
And I'd like them to feel like, they're doing something good and they're gonna get something for it, and it furthers our goals as a town, right? So I don't know, how to do it, but,
A couple things. First of all, we do have that one quote for being paid $100,000 a year to do this.
yeah.
So it doesn't make it sound
But is it
like-
being paid $100,000 a year after they take on who's holding the construction costs? Is it, we do this for free and we give you $100,000 a year?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was
You-
their
you
reason for
provide-
not
you-
wanting to
you-
do it?
We provide a roof, and we'll put the solar cells on it and collect the
Lease
revenue
liability,
from it.
long-term lease liability of leasing the panels.
Yeah,
So it doesn't make it sound like it's a terrible
I
hard
know there
lift.
was a good reason.
I mean, I have some experience. I have a little rental place in Peabody, and I have solar cells on the roof, and I give my tenants the electricity, and it's a really big incentive for them to live there.
Yeah,
And it-
definitely.
I put in the heat pumps too, and so, they don't pay for anything.
So they're paying rent, and their heat is covered, and their electricity is
The
covered.
whole thing's covered.
Wow.
You can make a fairly substantial commercial case for that,
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I was mentioning before, is
Yeah.
I think it isn't, we're asking them to do
So-
something, but it's not like we're asking them to do something that's degrading the value of
Right.
the product. And if that product is a
Right.
rental product, or that product is a purchase product, that's how, maybe that is actually how it gets presented and marketed.
On the type of building in our town where I feel like this really belongs and is a commercial building like Five Guys. Like Five Guys. A smallish building where you could literally probably cover most of the roof. And, 3 or 4 businesses and that are, I'm sure, using plenty of electricity. It just would be an easy, that to me is an easy kind
Yeah,
of, it's
strange-
just
strange-
perfect.
It's strange they don't do it, honestly.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder. Maybe it's just not worth their while, they
Well,
just.
from my understanding with some of these opportunities, if someone's willing to pay for it, they usually want a 8, 10, 12, 15-year lease for the panels at that location. And from the few conversations I've had about this, that's a disincentive
Oh.
for the building to be flipped and sold to another
Oh, I see.
property owner
Okay.
when they have a long-term lease liability that they have to assume.
There was just an article actually in the Globe, and I didn't dive into it, about there are houses that they're finding having the solar panels on them are causing, I think there was in the Sunday Globe real estate section, and I will go home and read it tonight, but it was something about how a lot of people are, it's sort of like the in-ground pool. that, people think they're creating an asset, and then in some other people's perception. Now, personally, if I never had to pay an electric bill again, I'd be thrilled.
You and me both.
Yeah.
I think Ted's, what he was talking about there may apply to single-family houses too. If you have installed them on a lease
Yep.
arrangement, then the new owners get the lease.
And I think that is where people are concerned, because they're buying a house, but they're also buying a lease,
It's
but
like when you buy a house with a rental water heater, It's
Yeah.
with a tenant,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually a good way to,
yeah.
so
Solar panel as tenant.
Yeah, right.
the other point, and I had a conversation with a multifamily developer of mid to large buildings. A conversation with them about this was their payback period on their most recent project they did in New Hampshire was 12 to 15 years after the recent federal changes in incentives, which is another conversation entirely. But regardless, that was their payback period, and they had mentioned that's why we don't put them on all of our buildings, because incentives and paybacks change every 2 years, it feels like, with the state and federal politics. So that's another reason that gives me pause. And again, I want to say gives me pause because I appreciate the energy you guys put into this. It's more thorough and diligent than any other committee's bylaw interests have ever been, and that's a very good thing, and we appreciate it. But I have a few concerns about having a bylaw like this, that I don't want to have projects become more expensive. I don't want to have projects I don't want Swampscott to be considered to be a place that is uninvestable based on the feedback that I got from a few of the developers I spoke to about this. While at the same time, I share Angela's mentality that the Renewable Energy Committee, whatever it was before the name changed, Climate Action Committee, that plan was adopted by town meeting, so I do want to find ways to make progress towards that. At the same time, I don't want to use another expression, cut our nose to spite our face with other goals we have about housing production, affordable housing, and trying to get more development in town to help our commercial tax base.
Ted, can I ask
So
you a
I want to
quick
try and
question?
figure out the two balances there. Yeah.
Have you ever found a developer who thought that another requirement was going to be, a good idea and feasible, and they loved it?
No, but on that same note, I think a lot of towns would have that reaction to our inclusionary housing bylaw, which we have. But there's 200 and some odd communities in the Commonwealth that have that same bylaw. And there's only one community in Massachusetts that has a bylaw like this. So it gives me pause to think that this is
Nobody else has a bylaw
adoptable
like this?
outside of,
I can check, I didn't really check on that. But, it seems to work in Watertown, is why I
Yeah.
call them.
Oh, they do have a more, different type of community, in terms of its size and so forth, but still,
it's the hottest commercial real estate market outside of Boston
yeah, I'm aware.
in the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
And again, just my opinion, I think you've gotten a variety of opinions, at least from a few of us. My opinion is this is something maybe wouldn't be the best for Swampscott. However, there might be things that we can do and add into our bylaws that can
Yeah.
similarly advance some of these goals without,
So this is just a really quick search. Athol, East Hampton, Leverett, Norrell, Paxton, Shutesbury, and Watertown have implemented specific ordinances.
What were the other
for
ones? So
commercial.
out west, Athol, East Hampton, that's also in the west.
Athol, East Hampton, Athol, East
I
Hampton,
know,
Leverett,
You get tongue-tied on.
Norwell, which is south,
Okay.
South Shore.
Paxton, and Shutesbury. I don't
know where
even know where those
Paxton
two
is.
are.
Paxton's
be
next
west.
to Oxford, Worcester area,
West, okay.
central.
Central.
Don't tell them they're west.
Sure.
All right,
Where's
right,
near
central,
Worcester?
anything that's west of us. Central, I get it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some thoughts also, if it's okay
Yeah,
for me
I
to
was
chime
just
in.
going to ask you if
Okay.
your experience on this.
Thank you for your presentation. So a few thoughts when it comes to just the writing and definitions for solar bylaw, like we were talking about. We don't want to make it too prescriptive because the technology is ever changing. So it would need potentially really broad definition of solar energy system. That way, you're not having to constantly change it when the technology changes, so
Right.
keeping those definitions broad. And maybe keeping the standards more performance-based and more general, like using the best technology, that kind of thing. So it doesn't get too specific in that way, it becomes irrelevant. You know, and that's if we're writing in something into the bylaw. There also are a lot of different planning studies and ways to focus on just incentivizing solar development. So I know we talked about that a little bit. So rather than having these strict requirements, it
It's like
is
density
proposing
bonuses.
different zoning incentives, whether that's like streamlined permitting. Like if someone wants to come in, they basically have no barriers. It makes it much easier to come in and put it on.
I like that.
You know, things like that
Right.
are ways to incentivize it, you know, on top of whether or not you actually have the bylaw in place. And that's the only, you know, one of the only ones that comes to the top of my head, but I know that there are many ways, you know, that different municipalities have been trying to incentivize solar, even if it's not requiring outright with all of these different standards. So there are different ways to go about it, and definitely whichever way we decide to go, one way or another, we can definitely look into what, you know, best practices are for incentives, if that's the way we want to go, but also, you know, if there is specific language that really is, you know, preparing for the future and considering all of those different factors of how things might change. I think that's another way to go about it, at least when writing in bylaws, because you don't want to have to go all the way back to town meeting to change it again.
Yeah.
So, really thinking towards the future when it comes to technology and things like that.
We also want to be really careful with bringing any zoning bylaw to town meeting. We have to feel really confident that we're going to get there, because if it fails, we can't bring it back for a couple of years, and which really can set things back if you just want to go work on something again, you know, and fine tune it. So I don't think we're there in this bylaw. I understand the motivation to do it, because I think we need to find what are some ways with teeth that we can advance in what we want to do. And it's just, you know, it's a funny balancing act, or just a delicate balancing act with this one.
I would think some of the ideas that you just mentioned in terms of incentives, either density bonuses for multifamily.
Right.
Streamlined permitting in terms
Yep.
of,
Setback, something like that.
yeah, other incentives.
Yeah.
Things that were always asked
To
for.
me seem incredibly, much more appealing to consider. Let me rephrase it that way. Because we're giving them something and they're giving us something. To me, that seems
You know,
like more of a
break
fair,
on parking, you know,
yeah,
required
minimizing parking
spaces.
requirements from 1.5 to
There's
1.
always something we can figure out, you know, like I said, just, you know, carrots.
I hate to say this though, but just a lot of these, we have to be very thoughtful about how we envision that.
Exactly.
Because like when it comes to setbacks, when it comes to parking, these tend to be the things that ignite the neighborhood.
I know.
But
So
they
it's
also
like-
seem to be the things that we also get in regular conversations about with these type of buildings anyway.
Right.
But now if we have they all ask for them, and we collectively figure out ways, okay, if we give you that, what are you going to give us? This is a concrete thing that they can give us, and
Yeah.
we can be performative about in a good way.
Yeah,
But I agree with you, we don't want to
I do think it's
cut our nose
gonna,
to better face for,
we've got to be able to do
neighbors.
a bit of, sort of, you know, trading, little horse trading, which is not unusual to incentivize. I mean, it's done all the time. It's written into the Humphrey Street Overlay District. I mean, it's stuff we can
the Glover multifamily overlay district and.
I gotta
do
look
all the
that one
time.
up. I'm sorry.
So,
All good. The Glover farmhouse parcel is the one.
Oh, yeah.
I think those are things that sound appealing to me at least. And The other thing that I've had in the back of my head, we have, one of our standards in site plan review is environmental or resiliency or something
Right,
along
it's
those
very
lines.
vague, yeah.
It's vague, which is a good thing, because to Chris's point, we don't want to have to change the language every 3 years when we have new technologies. Something that I think that I would look to your committee to consider is a rubric or something along those lines for us to, as we're analyzing projects, we can say, okay, for us to think about, if it hits a 20 on this rubric, we know it's a good project from a resiliency
That's a great
perspective.
idea.
And if
That's a
it's
great
less than
idea.
that, it doesn't. And
Sometimes we're sort of wondering, like, does that make sense? Does this make sense? You know, that would be super helpful.
for example, if you have solar panels, you get 5 points or 7 points.
Yeah.
If you have spray foam insulation of R value X, Y, or Z, you get 2 points. If you have heat pumps, you know, I'm just spitting things off. You probably know a lot more of the other things that would make a building more resilient and energy efficient. Something like that would be an easy thing for the planning board to vote to
Yeah.
approve, not have to go to town meeting for, but we can approve that and consider that as one of our internal operating procedures.
Yeah.
So do you already have a scoring
Nope,
sheet?
no, we don't
So-
have anything like
We
that.
don't have anything like
but
that.
That's, again, I'm just spitballing, something
Oh,
that
yeah.
might allow us to look for solar panels, but also other stuff that kind of
Right.
collectively helps.
Is it set up for sea level rise and, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
anything,
Yeah.
I don't know, films on windows, I mean, I don't know all the technology. I know that that's something that's been, 3M has come out with some great
Well, there's-
window films and so forth.
I mean, there's.
for heat reflection, right?
We could also really be looking at everything from passive solar technology, like if buildings are being designed by architects, architects are trained to understand heat gain, they're trained to understand what is it to have screening on buildings. I mean, for the most part, to shade a window from the exterior is your absolute highest ability to
Right.
control heat gain.
Yeah.
And right now, it's almost like the heat is attacking us more than the cold. So, you know, really
Wait
thinking
till
about these
January.
technologies, because, yeah.
But it's also one of those things our friends on the tree committee or something might
Mm-hmm.
find beneficial in if, you know, doing a big parking lot.
Right.
Covering with more trees means less heat island effect, means less
Yeah.
heat reflecting onto your buildings, you know.
Yeah, it all
There's
goes
just-
together.
Those are
That
things
could
that,
be
at
part of
least to me,
our-
sound appealing in incentivizing
Yeah.
development, but also finding ways to at least advance towards some of the goals.
That's what I'd like
That's my
to
opinion,
do.
at least.
I think so, too.
Bill, do you have any thoughts? I hate to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. It's obviously a double-edged sword, right? So I agree that it's the right thing to do for like a development, but it's also going to be cost prohibitive, and developers, I don't think are going to be as pleased or as willing, depending on the incentives. And I don't know if the incentives you're talking about are going to be like a blanket incentive, where you could say, okay, you can have 25% more, less setback, or 25% automatic relief on your setbacks, or things like that. That becomes a little bit sticky.
Yeah. I think we have
Second of
to-
all, if you have somebody who already has solar panels and didn't get that setback, who's got to deal with the backlash
I
there.
can't think of anyone who did,
Um,
but you never know.
Yeah.
I can't say that, I don't know for sure, so.
And one of the other good points that I heard was Jerry saying that if we give them more parking or if we give them less setback, those are the things that every development gets complaints about, and those complaints are going to escalate.
Right,
So we're already in a weird position where we have to kind of mediate those, and it's going to make those mediations more difficult
Mhm.
from our perspective.
But
Again, I'm all for it, but.
I do like the idea, though, of if we started talking about, you know, this is active solar, if we started talking about passive solar, if we started talking about canopy, if we started talking about those things, that when you had a project that was very difficult to get anywhere near these percentages, you then pulled over and these other,
Here's the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
these other things came in.
and we can start,
Um,
to keep track, it might not be the ultimate, goal here, but I would think any chipping away we can do to advance is better than not, right? So, yeah, I would agree.
Are there any municipalities that have grants for solar panel adoption at a local level rather than the state level? And
I don't.
have no financial knowledge if Swampscott is even able to consider something like that, but just, again, spitballing. Like, I know some towns have lead remediation grants at the local level in addition to the state level. I'm just wondering if there's any towns that might have that from a solar,
Interesting.
or like waive a inspection fee or something for, not like that's a big thing, but anything helps, I guess.
Everything, it's
Don't
the
know.
sense of getting, having some benefit, right?
Yeah, I agree. A second thought would be that you have to be careful about the 50% as well, because obviously 50% of the roof, right? And, yeah, I think that's the way.
Yeah, have to be clearer on that, what that means, right?
Yeah.
So if it's a pitched roof, certainly, yeah.
Clear on that, and I'm trying to think, my own house, I get roofs in every direction, because there's
Right.
dormers and other stuff.
Right, well, they do say the facing, which way it faces.
Yeah, so is it 50% of only what's facing?
The solar ready zone area is 50% of the roof area that is either flat or oriented between 110 degrees and 270 degrees of true north. But it also, I mean, the percentage thing, like you were mentioning dormers, it's not like solar panels come in shapes. They're pretty.
They're square.
Like at this point in time, there's the things, and I know that in the historic district, we do look at solar panels, and we've had some come in and it's like, oh, well, there's an air vent here, so this doesn't fit here, and, there's the people that are laying out these things, it becomes complicated, but it could also really start driving the design, the aesthetic of the building, if they're having to eliminate detail in order to get the percentages. So I do think figuring out, I don't know if there's a magic number,
Right, I would leave that as, somewhat flexible, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And they mentioned in Watertown that the only issues they had was the 50% getting a little tight on some of those
Right,
surfaces,
exactly,
yeah.
Yeah, because that is, it could be very complex when you start thinking about non-residential buildings. You start thinking about buildings with restaurants, and you start thinking about like even the ventilation systems and so forth. They really
Fire
start taking
suppression.
space
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
on a rooftop.
Right.
So I'm just wondering if there's language that might be, it's hard to make something vague and rigorous.
I know.
I know.
A vague rigor is a little
Right,
bit hard.
So,
There's arguments for both,
Yeah.
so I think I'm managing our agenda now. We spent 90 minutes on this.
Yeah.
Do you have, you probably don't have clear guidance from us on what we think you should do, but do you have how do you want to proceed for next steps here? Because I think summarizing our conversation, some of us are more open to this than others, but I think all of us are open to finding next steps on how to advance goals together and getting the zoning bylaws and our operating procedure to be more aligned with some of your hopes and action items. So how would you like to proceed here for next steps, and what do you think the best takeaway is from this for us to continue working together?
Well, I really appreciate the time, the 90 minutes you guys have spent.
Happy to.
It's been very
You spent a lot more than that developing this, so we're happy to.
Better look at it.
So I think I'm going to go back to looking at Watertown and see what those 8 or 9 buildings are that they have put it on, aside from the parking garages, okay? So I'd be kind of curious how comparable they are to some of the buildings we may have. Obviously,
Yeah.
Watertown is different. It's a larger place, with more commercial buildings, that sort of thing, so.
Is that the only regulation, sort of resiliency regulation that they have? Is there anything else in their zoning, or?
This is the one I just.
Yeah, okay,
dig
just
out.
curious.
Yeah, right.
And I think the list of the rest of the cities are cities that probably have more open space to
Yeah.
be developed
Especially
than we
like,
do,
uh,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think solar fields
you're right.
probably what a lot
Exactly.
of those touch on also.
Much more rural, further out.
The two things that I would say, I think, from my perspective, that would be most helpful stepping out of this. One, if you would consider helping us, or working with us on some sort of rubric for our standard site
Rubric is
plan.
definitely
Yeah,
interesting,
that
And
would
I-
be super helpful.
And I think that's something that at least I'm open to talking about for anything subject to site plan, single-family, multifamily, residential, as long as we leave it, you know, able to be worked with enough on both sides of things, and the numbers could be worked with from everybody, I think that's reasonable enough to require for site plan, regardless of the intent, regardless of the size, new build, addition, whatever.
Okay.
Now, to implement something like that, is that by law level?
I think the most productive way to do it would be voting as a planning board to adopt that. We're the ones who vote on it, so we're the ones who can waive it, but it at least gives us the ability to change it by a vote of the planning
Yeah.
board without having to go back
Right.
to town meeting.
So site plan rules and regulations, the things that
Right.
we can
The rules and
vote on
regulations.
here.
So that's where it would land, is in the rules and
Exactly.
regulations, okay.
Yeah,
It's like design guidelines. We can
Right.
waive it, we can adopt it. Standards, you have to go to town meeting for.
right.
So
we
is
can
that
wor-
what it would be called, like design guidelines that?
I would call
similar
it-
to what we had for Women's Square?
Sustainability, I think
or-
you want it.
Sustainability,
Right, yeah, something, or
Guidelines, and we could
Guidelines.
adopt that as part of our site plan rules and regulations. And we can work with you, you know, if you have some thoughts on a draft, we can have another meeting like this in a couple months and talk about it, and
might even work with the tree committee to see if they
I'm sure they would love to see
Well,
incentives on there to
I think there's
reduce heat.
something really intriguing in that, because from my work on the Historic District Commission, the guidelines are enforceable.
Mhm.
You know, it's not, it is actually where we're given the ability to be flexible based on project type, based on, you know, what, and I would love for you all to think about that in here, is like, would this be a more effective design guideline than it would be a bylaw? I mean, there's something nice to be able to say, we have this bylaw, but if we have these guidelines that we can then flex with it, because the complexity of solar and the complexity of building sites and so forth in our town is, you know,
Yeah.
I currently own a house that solar panels don't make sense on because of the tree coverage
Right,
and,
that too, yeah.
you know, things like
Same
that.
with me.
So, you know, we certainly don't want to be in a situation where there's a wooded lot being looked at that we would have to be removing trees in order to meet the 50%.
right.
But all of a sudden, if we have a rubric where we're trading off things, this could be,
Right.
this could be a really interesting way to go forward.
And
And it
also-
would be a good testing ground to see how that would work to then potentially move into bylaw, because we'd start having real-time,
Absolutely, yeah.
you know, examples of like, what is it like getting solar arrays onto a roof of a 15-unit building?
You know, so it could step back a little bit from the technology, we could put a bunch of different stuff in there. You could put geothermal on there, because I know there's some homes in Swampscott that do have geothermal.
Do they? Really? Oh,
I
great.
know of a couple homes.
Oh, yeah, I know one on Atlantic.
One or two
Where?
on the hill,
Atlantic, yeah, there's one on Atlantic.
one in Atlantic, one or two on the hill up,
I thought that required a full acre.
no, I know at least one on the hill. I don't want to, I hate mentioning people's addresses, so I don't want to do that, but, and you know one on Atlantic, but like, you know, there's a whole bunch of different things that we can use to figure out what works, what doesn't, or what collection of them make a whole greater than the sum of its parts.
Right.
That would be my recommendation. I think
Yeah,
that's
no,
something
I
that'd be
like
helpful.
that too. It really gives, I think it gives a lot more meat to it as well, where we're, you know, it's really more, instead of kind of, you know, promoting one thing or, you know, kind of hammering out, this is the bylaw and it's gotta be this one thing. I mean, it really gives us a lot to work with and multiple ways to achieve the goals.
No, I like it too.
So I like it.
I would also think if we're doing something like that, building in also, we can't be the experts. Like if we can build in something that says, and
Other technologies toward this goal.
Right.
To really challenge developers and architects to be coming up with a way in which they might be addressing something that, you know, being overly prescriptive doesn't allow for that growth, and people can
Right.
come in with some, you know, there's things that weren't around 15 years ago that are now very common in building sites, and, you know, some of them are trends and some of them aren't. You know, I always laugh about the fact that when I went to architecture school and was taught about passive solar technology, I'd grown up in a passive solar house. And they existed, and the whole technology, the whole science was exactly intact. And it was just that it wasn't used regularly. But it was very efficient, to the point that we had to crack windows in the winter sometime because the heat pressure was so much by what was coming in the windows and heating the floor. So, you know, really having the ability to encourage technological advance and design, I think would be great to have in our guidelines.
Is there any other feedback from us you'd like? I want to get to the rest of our agenda and
Yeah.
not be here too late tonight.
Okay.
Any other feedback from us that would be helpful?
I think this is great. We can go away
Great.
and work on this, and really appreciate the time you guys took.
And we
Appreciate the work that you
your
did.
work. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
great.
I'm going to change hats for a second. Harbor Waterfront Committee, there might be some solar opportunities there. There's a lot of people in Harbor have solar on their boats, and I think a lot more should,
Ooh,
myself included. So think about that, just something to think about.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you all.
About,
Thank you so much.
my girlfriend's son has an electric motor.
An electric motor?
Yeah.
It's been on my Christmas list for 3 years. I don't know why my wife hasn't gotten it for me yet, but,
I think they're,
so that's a plug if she's watching. They're so expensive.
Yeah.
But they're really nice, and they're really quiet.
yeah, okay.
Okay. That was,
Talking electric trolling, or?
yeah, they have up to, well, Mercury just came out with the 30 horsepower all-electric
Wow.
outboard. But yeah, they have up to 10-pound torpedoes, they're called. They're like 10 horsepower. They're like 25 pounds. They're great. So they don't last very long, but
It's hard to find the charging station.
yeah, yeah.
One big lighting.
Krista, next part of the agenda.
All right, moving on. I know we don't have much time, but we put together just a few more topics for discussion. So expanded multifamily use zoning, that's potential conversion of single family into multifamily, but keeping the outside of the home looking like single family. Cottage cluster, the sign bylaw, I know we touched on that a little bit last month, as well as short-term rentals. So this is going to be more of a discussion of priorities and how to move forward than it is a presentation. But we just put this together by topic for you guys, so we can talk about it one by one. And then maybe, hopefully by the end of this meeting, have some priorities for what to focus on next year, and if any of these, you know, what might be a potential update for a town meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Figuring out what to prioritize,
Yep.
moving into next year.
So expanded
Oh, goodness.
expanded multifamily use zoning, we talked about this a couple meetings ago and on and off, but my, at least, thought on this was expanding the use table in some way, shape, or form for where some of this multifamily housing could be converted from single-family without having the Lego 8-family apartment building go up next to you.
Right.
Ways in order to avoid that, but still offer equitable multifamily housing throughout other areas of town where they may not be currently allowed.
Yes, and this is also the orange handouts are about single-family home conversion.
Right,
So there's a lot of good info in there as well with some diagrams.
it is. Thank you very much for that.
So just reconfiguring a single family to be a two-family, or
Mhm.
Yeah.
basically No
Yeah.
changes to the building.
Limited changes to the exterior except for fire code and parking, I guess, but there's a few examples in town I know of that already have this to some extent. 213, I want to say 211 Humphrey Street.
I didn't give
But
it-
that was new construction, right?
No, it's it's an old estate and a carriage house that's now a 7-unit.
Oh, you're talking about the Castle Mara,
On the
yeah.
rock, along the
Oh,
water
that's
there?
where, Cinder,
Yes, yeah.
shouldn't be shouting it out. All right,
But
sorry.
yes, there's that. there's a-
Yes, I know,
there's-
that's a really good example,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
old estate
yeah,
with a carriage house that's now 2 units in the carriage house. and
beautiful, yeah.
5 townhouses or something in what was the estate.
But
It
it kept,
looks
you
like
know,
an estate.
keeping the original structure.
Yeah.
Right.
And, yeah, that's a beautiful property. Typically, what happens now is a lot of buildings like that, except that was so beautiful, but a lot of them get torn down along Humphrey Street
Fortunately.
and just built to, something bigger gets built. But,
But there's a handful of homes like that. I can think of one that was on the market for an extended period of time last year. The older estate-like houses.
Right.
Like, this one was on the corner of Ocean Street and something. But there's a handful of them that are still out there, and
yeah,
maybe none of them will work for this, but maybe some of them do. I don't know if, I
so
just-
what would you want to do? Instead of, you could say in all zoning districts by special permit type of thing, except for all residential districts, I suppose.
Yeah.
As opposed to changing the zoning. In other words, so if A1 and A2 would stay A1 and A2, which is essentially single family, A3, it's already allowed by right, and A4, obviously, it's already allowed by right.
Do we have this is a terrible question to ask right on the spot, but is there any way to put up the map of where the
The
zoning?
GIS, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just pull up the GIS and,
Well, the zoning map is on the website, so that's an easy way to just pull it up.
yeah.
Yeah, I can also pull up, sorry, using 2 different computers.
And I did
Actually,
not
I'm gonna
have,
do it on,
I did not have Krista, I was remiss in giving Krista a chance to introduce herself to the board at the last meeting formally, so, but I will brag for Krista, she's a GIS expert. We're
Wow.
Very lucky to have her skills.
So
in
excited
Swampscott.
about that, you have no idea.
So we are very eagerly awaiting Krista
It's
to
on
get
my,
the
it's been
GIS
on my
stuff.
wish list for about 10 or 15 years, honestly.
I'm also eagerly awaiting. to get
Oh,
that,
great. Yeah.
So a lot of the,
Program
You
on
got a
the
big
computer.
project
a
there.
lot of
so-
the mapping and GIS questions, I've already asked Krista, and she's
Yeah,
working through the
So
ability to
great.
get that worked through town hall. So
yep,
It's fantastic.
it'll be a very,
yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, so, and it, is really a great tool for supporting.
I love it.
all of-
I've used it
sorts of
so much, just, my rudimentary way over the years, and it's been so useful.
Okay.
the orange document here was an MAPC study that they did for the South Shore Planning
Ah,
Association, or South Shore,
no, it's
a bunch
good.
of South Shore communities. So both of these documents we have were pulled from that study they did, but the pictures throughout, I think, are illustrative of different examples.
I mean, Swampscott is very, the older parts of town, I mean, it's 2 families, 3 families, they're so common. And I don't think it's odd, or people aren't gonna, oh my God, like,
What does PDD stand?
Plan Development District.
land development, there are a few of them.
So I guess the question that I have on this is, if this is already by right,
In the A3 and A4,
I
which
thought
is
I thought-
most of the,
yeah.
Single-family zoning.
A4, why would we not just rezone the A1 district into an A3?
because then you're eliminating single-family zoning, which is not gonna be popular.
And I'm not,
I think
I mean, regardless of how, progressive it is, it's not gonna be popular.
I
But
think
am I
that's just a fact.
understanding though that this whole, like this enormous block here is all A3?
That's right.
Yep.
And A2 is, A4 is pretty big.
I think,
too.
Krista, could you just pull up the
The static-
zoning map
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
Swampscott
that's
Town
really
website? It'll be a
much
little easier to
Because
see.
Yeah.
I think that,
Because, I mean, you'll see it in a minute, but in layman's terms, Puritan and Humphrey, once you get to the split, everything
Yeah,
northeast,
Same.
yeah, everything to the right of that and to the north of that is not allowed, anything other than single family. and
Sorry,
everything
everyone, this is,
on the other side of town is.
and traditionally, when we talk about,
You can even-
reusing, that's where all the big estates were, and when they were all just demolished and, broken down by 1960, I think, was really the end of them. I mean, it was just, it was all subdivision, so that's why you get,
No GIS.
2018, is that new enough?
Yeah, I don't think the zoning maps have changed since then.
not in
2018.
a couple of years. There's one in there from 2024, I just looked at it.
I thought we changed it a couple of years ago to add the
Yeah, I don't know what year you said. What was the year?
This was 2018.
No, you said 2024. I think there should be, right,
You can Google it.
go ahead.
I found it
wait a
on
minute.
Google just by Googling Swampscott zoning map,
I thought it was
and it's one of the
right
first two
there.
responses.
Sorry.
This one? Let's try it.
Yeah, let's see.
See, it's coming
That's
up
a
with
2018 map.
2018.
Oh, that's weird.
But, I mean,
Well, I don't know if it's gonna have, did we do A4 then?
We did it before.
Did it, or did you do B4? Well, it doesn't matter about the business districts.
Sorry, I'm going to,
We changed something around. No, it was proposed to change around the train station, but I don't think we actually did. There was one lot that we changed.
that was the 40R that you're trying to do over by the train station?
There was just one lot that was mistakenly.
Oh,
around, so
right. We did that like,
it was just
couple
one-
years ago, right?
One property.
we did that last year, 2 years ago, right?
It was a year or two ago, yeah.
Yeah. Any other changes since then? Nothing since I've been on the board other than that one, to the map.
You were here
Um,
before?
No, we just did
That
a
was before that.
bunch of other stuff.
I was 2021.
That's another thing I'd love to do, Krista, and this is, I don't even know how, it'd be a big project for, we'd probably figure it out though, but, when you look at Marblehead's bylaw, for example, the one thing I love is when I go through it, just to referral, and I'm not sure if they did this in Salem, it was like, whatever you're looking at, it'll say amended town meeting this year, amended town meeting, added to, every addition it's just noted right there what year it was adopted, which is so helpful.
Jared, for your context, this is probably identical. If not identical, it's 99% accurate.
So the white is
sorry about this.
what?
A2?
Why did they two, I think?
Should come out better than that. I just sent you his name.
A2 and A3?
Um,
Because there's an A3 down there that's gold.
There's no gold. Oh, just that little bit of gold?
That little
These
bit
are-
there and
these
there.
are-
And now this one, because this one is sort of it's contradicting.
No, that gold is Humphrey Street overlay.
No, it's not.
I'm looking down here in zoning.
A3 is just next to the Hotel Tourism Overlay District. It's next to the Fish House.
Yeah, that's supposed to be red.
Whatever map this is, I'm gonna have it taken off the internet.
Yeah.
And
It's sad.
make sure that it
Yeah.
doesn't, so
Yeah.
you
It's
can't
not
Google it.
good. Agreed.
Because I don't know why it keeps popping up, but we can look here and see this A3 is, I think, attached to this gold zoning.
So like the whole Olmsted district is A2.
Yep, this
So
is all I do.
multifamily and
It's
all.
not, it's not allowed.
Multifamily is not allowed.
It's not allowed.
Okay, okay. So it is the A2 and the A1
Right.
is the majority of the residential neighborhoods.
Right.
Yep.
It's
Okay.
just the setbacks that change. They are lot size and setbacks, frontage.
Okay. That answers my question.
So multifamily
This is where
dwellings,
I found it.
oh,
Here.
containing not more than,
On the, okay, let me just see.
so three-family is allowed in A3 and A4 by special permit.
A4.
Right, A3 and A4, correct.
A special permit or by right?
permit.
No, both up to 3 in A3, and then over 3 to whatever, 8, I think it is by, yeah,
By
in
special.
A4, or by special permit, right?
Not,
Zoning.
only allowed in A4 that way. A3 is no.
Okay, I'm
This
sorry.
was the map I had.
So I
just
think I
pulled
threw
it
this,
from,
I asked this one
Oh,
question.
that's the
and I
same
think
one she has.
We
No,
threw us
yeah,
on a
it was-
GIS.
Yeah.
Yep, good. Much better.
All right.
Then we get a huge A2 where, of course,
Nothing's
the
allowed.
junior high is, and Tedesco, obviously.
So in A2 is only for residential uses, it's single family only. A2, yep.
So what is the difference between A1 and A2? That's just setbacks?
Setbacks,
Lot size.
frontage, right,
Okay.
lot size.
And then, so if we were to single-family home conversion, where does this land? Does this land in,
I think it lands as a special, in all, I think it can land in, first of all, it's by right already, and, but I think it's kind of something.
it's by right in A3?
A3 and A4,
But not in A1 or A2?
right, but we might want to just, we just put it in there as something that's,
Well, it's by
Yeah.
right up to two family in A3 and A4.
exactly,
More
right,
than two families, special permit in A4,
right,
and
And I don't think
in
it's
minimal
allowed.
cases, A3.
yeah.
3
And then
units.
this
Up to
one
3, I
would
think,
be
right?
single-family to two-family?
A
or
single
does it-
family.
So you could do it
this
2
is
to
spec-
4, it depends on what you want.
Right, so a single family to a two-family conversion in the same structure is what we're talking about, right? So I think that that's what could be allowed under special circumstances, with a special permit. And it's not, building, look, ADUs are already allowed.
Right,
It's like,
take that off the table, it's
you
not
can
even.
put a little, shed in your backyard if you want to, and go have someone live there. So, I mean, I think, once again, it's just one of these things, a single-family home conversion, but there's no new construction that's gonna
Right.
be, that's gonna come out and be a two-family home, okay? And
Mm-hmm.
if you'll notice, and I know, I read through this, in the zoning and the cases that were given, their restrictions were that, it varies, but the house had to either, be built prior to 1955, before 1941, it had to be older than 10 years old. In other words, you can't.
Can't build it new and
right,
do
you
it.
can't build it new to convert it right away. Because it's not, technically, it's not allowed. And that was on, it's further down, under partner
Partner town zoning.
partner town zoning.
So this would eliminate the square footage limitations that exist with ADUs.
Well, it has
No.
to be in the same house. So
Right, but that's what I
if you
mean.
had if you had a 4,800 square foot house and you were gonna split it right down the middle, yeah, I guess you're right. But that would be not, without expanding
Right.
massing or I don't know, we haven't
But-
talked about what the,
Yeah.
specifics are, but. the
So I guess
footprint-
in theory, if you have a 5,000 square foot house, I guess you technically could make it, let's use, yeah,
25s.
And-
two 2,500s or two 21s and an ADU that's attached that's 800. I mean, in theory, you could do that.
And then, I don't fully understand this, I know that in the conversations about ADUs, if you then are turning this into a two-unit property, does that allow for two ADUs?
No,
No.
state law,
That is
you have to get a
bylaw
variance.
Somewhere, it's like one per property or
One
something.
per property?
Yeah.
And that's in
then
state law
I guess the other
as well.
question is, this does not allow for building expansions, or are building expansions in
We-
doing
we-
this?
We could allow that if we wanted to, but
We could, but I think we
Or we could not
specifically
allow
are
that.
talking about a home
Yeah.
conversion, right? I mean, you might need to add a different exit, change.
fire code stuff.
Right, change the facade in terms of, are you gonna have, one doorway service to homes, that type of thing?
Why do you ask that question, Jer? What,
Just curiosity.
oh, okay.
Just
Do you
in
think
the
that you
sense that-
should consider
No, but some of
that,
the.
or not?
So I did not get a chance to read this thoroughly, but there's a few images in here that, where the houses are definitely expanded.
Yeah,
Maybe,
I think the idea is that it would be using, the original,
the original
Home.
footprint.
yeah.
Yeah, the real hope is to use a single-family looking house and just make it a multifamily house, but size, scale, neighborhood character of an
And then-
existing single-family home.
The issue around, like, how do we handle parking when if you figure an average family has at least 2 cars, all of a sudden you're up to 4 cars, how is that generally handled in these?
You would do, it's 1.5 per unit across town,
yeah,
same calculation would apply.
right.
And then you round up, when you get to a half a unit, you round up. I don't know if it's in the bylaw, and this is a separate conversation. Do tandems count or not count? Because every week I'm confused by that.
What do you mean tandems in terms of,
Parking.
Those two, if that's in
Oh,
tandem,
yeah.
is that one
Yeah,
spot or
Like,
two
is this the
spot?
spot too?
yeah, it's,
Yeah,
well,
that-
there's a lot of parking like that in our town, so, I mean,
We
we
should,
have.
maybe a thought for another day, we
I
should
think,
clarify
you
that.
know,
Yeah.
I mean, even the house I grew
Right.
up in, my parents parked one behind the other always.
We could
That'd be full size.
have a formal interpretation.
Yeah.
But one in front of the other, that example there, is
As
that
long
2
as
spots
they're,
or 1 spot?
Whatever it is, 9 by 11.
Oh, I mean, look at the length of the driveway.
I would say
That
that's
can
4 spots.
Easily
Or 11.
accommodate 2 cars off the road.
Yeah.
Yep.
They have to be the full 9 by 11, because the one,
Yeah.
that one on Blaney that came in and it was
What,
too short.
what
Right,
if,
right.
Other than that, it was.
so, how, if this gets put forward,
Mhm.
how do we combat the value of a property? So, are we at risk of people attempting to buy a single-family home, having to always compete with a flipper that wants to turn it into 2 units? And how do we keep that from happening, if this is the case?
Make it put solar panels on.
Perfect. I think we needed to merge these two. Yeah, but the houses will require
Well,
complete coverage and solar panels.
In
Well,
reality,
I
we're
mean,
already
don't we
doing
have,
that.
It's not, if we're not making it by right, we're saying you can, you can apply for, it's, why would someone go through the trouble of buying a house, putting all the work into it to make it, 2 units inside, having to work within that structure, right?
So this is not making it by right.
No, it's a
It-
special
It's up to,
permit
yeah, it
procedure.
would be up to you,
No way I'd make it by right, no way.
Yeah.
Because then we're talking about, keeping the structure of the house and not expanding it, because then you're in a whole different world of special permit stuff.
Well, the reasons I ask is, if I jump back to Captain Jack's. Captain Jack's was not a viable hotel purchase because of the value of the land.
Mhm.
So that can manifest itself in a lot of different variations. And that would be a concern that I think we should study as to, what does happen for families that are looking within a community. Like, if you start in a smaller house and your family grows, and all of a sudden you're competing with a developer instead of, if I'm looking for a 2,500 square foot house,
I
if I'm
see.
competing with someone that's looking at that as 1,250
But why do
square
they think
foot,
they're gonna sell that property for more money, just because?
because they could have a deeper pocket to do it, because they're a developer, not a family.
But we already,
So-
every
what's-
property in A1 and A2 already has that problem in theory, because you're allowing special permit. Some of those districts, you have by right up to 2-family, and others special permit up to 8 units, so that,
I thought you were saying A1 and A2 does not have the.
A3 and A4, I might be
Oh,
using the
okay.
wrong zoning districts. but
A3
Some of
and
our
A4.
zoning districts already have that
Yeah.
exact
Right.
mechanism. But with even less potential restrictions, since you're allowed to do, you would, in theory, be allowed to do additions. And if
I think what we
prohibit that-
want to do here is say, basically in districts where it's single-family zoning, you can, if you have, some beautiful old house, we're trying to make it for older houses, right? So the bigger, older houses, I guess, because, I don't know, whatever. So I'll stick with what I was saying. The larger, older houses can be, without any change to their exterior, can be divided inside to be 2-family homes. Now,
Or more.
there is gonna, we're saying 2,
Yeah.
aren't we
No,
saying?
it said 2 to 4.
2
Yeah,
to 4
well-
to.
But I mean, this is
And
all
this is the discussion.
theoretical.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think 2 to 4 is gonna fly, because
So-
you already need a special permit for that, and
One of the things I think is interesting is
Everywhere.
how do we balance historic preservation and allowing adaptive reuse of older homes? If I think about some of the sizable houses,
I'm thinking about Elmwood Road, for example, let's just throw it out there.
can't imagine.
Yeah, so they're very, very large historic homes in an historic district. So say someone just found their house like unmanageable, and maybe they thought who knows? It would have to be someone who lived there already and
But,
decided
I mean,
to do it. I mean,
the thing that
not cheap.
when I'm processing this, I also have to think if we're targeting these larger, older homes, an HDC is really protecting the exteriors.
Right,
When you live in the Olmsted District and you're in some of these interiors, they aren't protected, but they're definitively worthy of being.
yeah, they really are.
You know,
Can't
and
do
I
that,
can't
know.
tell you what some of the houses on Elmwood Road's interiors are like, you can't believe it.
I've been in quite a few of them,
And-
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
but-
and it's a case with things like this where, when you do the examples on them, because of the era of a lot of the houses in town, there isn't a way to maintain.
No, there isn't.
The staircases, there is not a way to maintain
Right.
the entry halls, there is not, so it is, I'm responding to that, how do we balance
Mm-hmm.
historic preservation? I think, how do we define historic preservation?
Yeah.
Because is it a facade? Is that
It's true, but
the only thing?
there's just no mechanism even through, Mass Historical, anywhere that I'm aware of, short of a preservation restriction on a building, that would protect the inside.
No.
Nothing.
But there's protection, and then there's motivation. So would we be motivating people
I see what you mean.
to
To
act in a way that was
to-
anti-preservation?
kind of chop up the
Now-
inside of their house.
The
It's hard to
district
imagine.
around Blaney Street, the district, Elmwood Road in itself, many of these have been reversed, but units have been taken out of houses there because post-World War II, many of those houses
Right.
were divided.
Right.
And some of them stand divided still, a house
Yep.
standing divided. And many of them have been reverted back where, and a lot of them were third floor apartments. But I think since we've lived there, I can think of 3 units that have been removed. Many of
Yeah.
them were illegal. But, there was a period of time where there were boarding houses on Elmwood
Sure.
Road because there was such a housing shortage.
Right.
And it's how people kept them. So, I don't know, that's a topic that I think is interesting. And I don't
That's
have
someone.
an answer to it.
Yeah,
It's just,
I understand exactly what you're saying, though.
You can deny that person.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
I already admitted them.
It's my wife saying, how's your meeting going? When are you coming home?
Yeah. Overdue, right?
and then the parking requirements, again, if we're talking the Olmsted District, that's one thing, but when we get into the neighborhoods
Hopefully.
that really have very limited space,
Yeah.
then that becomes an interesting,
I am a personal opinion. Most cases, to me, 1 parking spot per unit I think is standard, and that's kind of where things are going towards. Anything less than 1 is like zero non-starter, not even worth
Joe
considering.
and I can't wait till we can have just one car.
Yeah.
It's coming,
It's a great thing.
coming one of these days.
Are you one car?
We are, but with a second kid coming very soon, we are probably moving to two
Yeah.
cars.
I'm one car.
Yeah, that's good.
We're
Might
20,
have
we're
to
20
change.
years, one car with two kids.
Yeah,
But some of that has to do with the fact that we use public transit.
yeah,
You know,
right,
that's-
Salem Skipper helps too. I live in Salem.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And we, you know, and the other reality that we balance is that there's a very good rental agency, and
Yeah.
so we
Right.
do augment in moments that we need to, and it's way less expensive than having to.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think, let's stay on this for a few more minutes.
So how is this just not ADU?
Because there's no size restriction, and there's no use
So it's
restriction.
ADU.
And it's, and there's nothing that's outside of the structure that's there. So with an ADU, you can actually have an addition.
You could, but
Yeah.
you don't have to.
Right.
So if you take one of these pictures, right, any one of them, and instead of making a whole apartment, you make a smaller apartment.
You can, and then it could be an ADU,
And that's already allowed.
right?
Like, we
Yep.
don't need to do anything for that, right?
Right,
Mhm.
And
It is
what
allowed.
This is saying that most of these are gonna be limited to 900, 1,200.
yeah, agreed. It's just that it, I mean, I think it takes that whole restriction out.
Well, and let's take out what an ADU
And we're
is.
really looking about, we're trying to, I guess it is kind of kind of saying to people, look what you can do.
Yeah,
I mean, I think to Bill's point, we already can do that with an ADU.
you can do it with an ADU, but you have all the restrictions that we have on ADUs. Same utilities,
True.
same meters.
Right, right.
Tenancy restrictions, depending on the town, which we have here, size
Of
restrictions.
course, we would never let, it would still always be one property, and it couldn't be, it
Right,
couldn't
but you could
become
multi-meter
two ad,
them.
you couldn't split it off and sell half your house, you couldn't
Turn it
sell,
down.
yeah,
Well, you
couldn't
could
do
do that.
anything.
I mean, we
I
wouldn't
was
have
gonna
anything
say,
to restrict that.
I don't know how you would restrict that. I mean.
They do.
But how
condo
you can't sell
conversion-
half a house, I mean, it's not, it has to be,
a
It's a condo unit,
If it's 3
Right.
floors and they turn them into condominiums, each owner owns a floor.
right.
yeah, oh, that's tricky.
Also, there's one on my street that. the
Oh, there's
second
that
floor is-
one right on Humphrey Street going into,
There's a lot of them.
they got a preservation award actually years ago. It's one of those houses that has, it's hard for me to describe now, but it's like right along, as soon as before you you're heading out towards Lynn, and it's on the right-hand side,
Oh,
those
yeah.
big houses.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And it's
The yellow one?
3
Gambrel
stories.
roof.
The yellow
Right.
one?
With multi-floor.
It might be yellow, yeah.
No, it's
could
sort of
be.
a taupey.
Yeah,
light
could be
taupey
taupey.
color with
Yeah,
a-
yeah.
With a nice, it's a very nice house.
3
Yeah.
floors?
Yes,
Three
it's
floors,
3
gambrel roof
units.
on the top.
Yeah,
I know the one.
There's a number of gambrel roof, and there's one that has exquisite detail, and
yeah,
it's that one.
it's that one, because they
But-
did.
But that, condoizing is definitely, where this would be, and there are.
So I guess it would be owned by like a condo association then or something, because it can't, I mean, it has to be run by that. You sell the condo, I mean, you can't,
They're individually owned, but you would have an HOA,
Managed.
like with
Yeah.
whatever the
Right.
units are for like roof and anything exterior
I
to.
mean, there's a bunch of those in like the McIntosh district in Salem, you know?
Tons of them.
There are more
Amazing.
places.
I
that
mean,
you
Pete
go.
lived in one like that.
Yeah,
And-
There's-
yeah.
right.
Elmwood Road has one, there's one on Walker Road.
Yeah, so it's not that unusual.
Yeah,
So what are we doing here then? What are we actually doing? What are we trying to say?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. So
You
Yeah.
can break up the house if you maintain, you have to,
Yeah, this isn't about creating a rental unit.
Which,
No,
This
this
is
is about creating
a housing.
housing
Right.
unit
Yeah. And
without,
it could be
Right.
rental, it
Yeah.
could be, yeah.
right.
it's about creating more units without disrupting size, scale,
pattern,
character
without
of what is
develop-
already
Without
existing.
disrupting the
Yeah.
pattern,
if it's
the neighborhood
development
pattern,
pattern,
right?
right.
two-family, then you have the ability to sell them
You
into
can do whatever,
Yeah.
right,
an ADU. unit,
Okay.
right?
correct.
and it
So,
opens up more types of housing for people who want to live in
Right,
Swampscott.
okay.
I'm trying to think of it from the perspective of what the pushback can be.
Pushback
that's
is you're
what I try to
you're
think
creating
about
more,
it too.
more housing,
density,
Right,
density.
It's
Just
density,
creating- right.
yeah.
And that's valid
More
pushback,
housing,
but that's,
parking.
in terms of everything we do, that's the only pushback I can think of.
It's always parking.
You're creating more
trash,
density.
noise.
but we're not putting
Trash,
in
noise.
14 apartments, it's like another,
It's another fixed X amount of units, but you're not changing character, you're not changing massing, you're not changing any of the existing neighborhood theme, whatever the word was you just used.
And, you know, I'm talking about the historic preservation, but realistically, in private ownership, every single historic interior is not protected at all.
Well, there's nothing you can do about that,
No.
unfortunately.
Oh, no, no, no,
wish
but I
there
mean,
were,
I'm
but
just saying
I'm
that
with you.
when I was looking
understand.
at this, that was my question
But
on
I
that,
look
but
at people
realistically,
who
it's
own
not
some of
protected.
those exquisite properties on Elmwood Road, and you just can't even imagine that you'd have the heart to like.
Have you been to Linshore Drive?
Oh, God.
But I'm not talking about, I would hardly say that started out as exquisite, but yeah,
Are you
that was
kidding
pretty
me?
bad.
That was one of the most intact, exquisite.
I'd never seen the inside, I guess.
Yeah,
but-
no, that was a beautiful.
I mean, that is the craziest thing.
Yeah.
It's totally crazy.
Um,
It's like a,
Should land a helicopter on that.
So,
yeah.
would the question, so, could density bonuses be tied to affordability or accessibility?
We don't, yeah, need to.
Yeah, I don't
Do
think.
you
we're-
want-
We don't need to get to that
I really wouldn't
one.
be looking at density.
Yeah,
I
these
mean,
were just like discussion.
Right.
No, I just thought it was an interesting
Yeah.
question.
I'm gonna throw my thought, and I'm very much know I'm gonna get reactions, and that's why I'm doing it, because I wanna get thoughts on this. I think this is I like this, because I don't think it disrupts neighborhood character. I think the unit count, I think two is too small. I think 5, 6, 7, 8 are way too large. And I think the
I think
density.
I think 4 is too large. I mean, 3 is pushing it in my mind.
I think by the
Three is
time in-
3 is a major gutting.
Mhm.
And 4 is just, it's like, that's gonna feel like a rabbit hole. It's just like.
I
too
would
much.
also
What-
say, not in reaction to house size, but in reaction to the fact that the majority of our town has very small lots.
Yep.
I think once you get 3 or 4 units in, and they have cars, every yard is a parking lot.
Yeah.
And
But but push back on that, we have the open space requirements for permeable surface area, and that's not gonna change. And.
So then why are we offering stuff that's not gonna
you
make
can-
any sense?
You can park on grass to begin with.
No, you
Like,
can.
someone could make a parking lot in their backyard if it's one unit, or they could just make a
I,
post on
I
patio.
agree, but most people, and people can own 6 cars
Mhm.
or 8 cars, but many are not going to. I think
Right.
this is, I mean, that is the one thing, I would say if we were in a community with larger lots, I can start understanding this, but even, the idea, like, there's great illustrations in here of these converted homes. I can think of houses in Marblehead that were large, that have been divided up, that have large lots, and they look like medical centers because all of the cars
Yeah.
that have to park in their yards, and I don't think it is beneficial to the neighbors. I think it's an arguable thing, so I'm not positive. I think that's a really hard thing to look at, and.
What, parking?
No, like, what does it mean to have 4 families in a house versus 2? I'm just
Yeah.
not sure that is going to be a town meeting friendly gesture. I think if our point is to get more housing,
Mhm.
it might be smarter to have an amount that people I could imagine a two-family house in,
Yeah.
across the driveway from me. I don't know if I can picture a 4-family house. Like, if the house in front of me had 4 families in it, my lifestyle is gonna change significantly. My quality of life is gonna change significantly. So, I
Right.
just think if this is something, if our goal is, more housing, opening it too wide could defeat us.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think
think we
that's
might
fair.
be better off saying, homes could become 2-family homes, and people can have a relationship with that. But, the other thing
Yeah,
is it's far less likely to have a 4-unit house that's owner occupied. It's much more likely to have a 4-unit house that's an apartment house.
Mhm.
And then you're talking about neighborhood impact.
Okay, so that's just an adjusting a unit count, right?
But
To
from a
4, 3,
political
or 2.
standpoint of like, how do you convince
Yeah, I see,
a
I
community that
agree.
that risk
I
is
think that,
valuable.
I think the two, converting a single-family home to a two-family in the same structure is, I don't think people are gonna feel like they're gonna have an impact.
Yep.
And you're not gonna hear people screaming that you're changing single-family zoning. And, it's,
What would you think of doing the unit cap of 2 units with a third unit as an incentive for
Okay.
inclusionary zoning?
no, that's even worse.
Why is that?
Because you're chopping up this, now it's gonna feel like an apartment building again. It just starts to feel like an apartment building.
By having 3 units in a house?
Yes. I think a two-family is just, there's something there that, it just, at 3, it just changes. In a single-family home, so it's just, I think it's just hard to, that one on Lynn Shore Drive or whatever that's called, it's Humphrey going into Lynn, when we were talking about, it's, even,
It was also, the one that you're saying won the Preservation Award, was also built as a 3-family.
yeah, I thought it had.
That's a very lovely triple-decker,
Yeah,
in the sense that it's 3 flats. And
that's what I was gonna say, I didn't think it got
that wasn't a
chopped
conversion,
up.
no. There were, a lot of those were multifamily houses, and they were stylistically very appealing.
Right.
Waterfront, but,
I'm just not sure, respectfully, I'm not sure I agree that the 3-unit thing changes things drastically from a neighbor perspective. If we're talking about
It would to me.
no changes to the exterior of the house, at all. You're just, we're largely talking about large homes here, like
So
the
are we gonna-
dozens of
are we
3,000
going
square
to?
foot
So
houses.
that's a good question. So how big does the house have to be to go into,
I don't know. What do we want? We can make it whatever we want or
so
don't want.
if we want to talk about, like, if you've got if you're shifting,
just
Hey, not-
retrofitting,
like our
retrofitting a
ADU
single-family home.
our ADUs are, we initially started out with this whole conversation about a 900 square foot ADU. And we recognize that as a limited space. And then if you multiply that by 3,
They're 2,700 square feet.
you're at 2,700 square feet.
And that
that's
doesn't account for any
already-
hallways or entryways or
Right, but
anything
that's
like that.
already, that is not a small house, right there.
Nope.
It's not a small house.
But that still seems to me smaller than the type of home I would think this would work in.
So would you have a
But at the
minimum
same time, how
area?
do we have an ability to say to someone, your house's lot is too small, you're too close to your neighbors,
Yep.
this is a dense neighborhood, and we don't feel we can
can
allow
Yeah,
you
so
to
we
restrict
can
all
have,
that
to a
yeah, so
double
we
or.
can have some,
We
Yeah, lot size, we can have standards along with this. You can do the you're eligible or whatever, for the conversion, depending on, like, the house's size.
right.
uh,
You could
layout.
limit the size to whatever existing size is. If we want to say it can only happen over houses over 2,000 square feet, 3,000 square feet, 4,000, whatever the trigger is, you can base your eligibility on any of those factors. Square footage, lot size, whatever. And my view on this was not to have everybody with a 2,500 square foot house go say, hey, let's have
so what would
3
be the
800
minimal-
square
What
foot.
do you have in mind for like a minimum size, minimum?
I
square
am
footage?
imagining this only being practical to the houses that are already quite large.
Give me an idea.
The houses on Atlantic Ave going towards Marblehead that
Mm-hmm.
are 4,000 square foot plus and built 100 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm not sure those are the houses that will turn. That's the
Maybe.
question that I have, is like, we can come up with like guidelines, but at the point that houses start coming in that we recognize the guides that we needed, what are the impacts? I mean, I think it has to be really, really
I think
cautiously
it's-
thought through, like really thinking about what are our, I don't wanna call them case studies, but like, okay, let's look at these houses and think what would this mean? Because I think presenting this, like if this has to pass town meeting,
Yeah.
So 1/4 of an acre or larger,
Like,
2 to 3 stories, 3. 2 and we only have, so it can go, so you're saying it can go higher, because we don't have any 3-story. Unless
What?
it's in a 2, it could be some A3s. We might have some 3 stories existing, some
we
Depends
would
on
grandfathered.
how
just
you-
put all the
what do
underlying
you call a
zoning,
3-story?
dimensionality of it.
Yeah,
cause
depends on configuration of
Yeah.
original structure, exactly.
But I can also think of 1-story houses that it would be logical to be able to split.
Yep.
So I'm not positive the story thing,
I think you would just say the dimensionality is all
No, the
underlying
dimensions, the square
existing.
footage, the
Yeah.
gross square footage, I guess, you know.
yeah, because there's a number of houses, the irony of it, a 1-story house is easier to turn into a 2-family because of the fact that you can have ground level entry. So you're not dealing
Right.
with secondary egress, you're not dealing with drop-in,
Yeah.
fire escapes and everything else that you might have to on a multifamily house.
Right,
Mhm.
Because, most houses, many houses are single staircase. If you put a unit on a second floor, you're having to figure out a second egress out of it.
So you can see in the presentation here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 South Shore towns that adopted theoretical zoning like this with a bunch of different permit granting agency authorities and different restrictions. And then 2 pages later, outside of that geography of the South Shore, there's Abington, Gloucester, Holden, Portsmouth. Similar zoning, just different triggers that they use, different approving authorities, by right, special permit, whatever. But the different examples that they use for that. My practical case study for this would be some of those houses that you can see on Atlantic Ave or on Humphrey Street, further towards our neighboring town to the north, that are big, beautiful homes, and giving them an option to add another dwelling or 2 or whatever, but without changing absolutely anything from the exterior, unless you have to add another, spot for a car or something, or fire code. I don't think any of the dimensionality should change, any of the underlying zoning should change whatsoever. And maybe there is a minimum lot size, maybe there is a minimum gross square footage area, because to your point, Jer, I don't think it makes sense to have 3 ADU size places in one building, because that just is kind of working around triggers that we already have. But some of these examples might help illustrate this in practice in terms of zoning.
How,
interesting, so Cohasset does an interesting job here.
And Portsmouth ties their unit count, and we're not Portsmouth, so I'm not trying to insinuate that, but Portsmouth ties their unit count to their lot area.
Oh, no, that's, Cohasset does too. District by
Okay.
district, minimum lot size requirement increases as units are added.
Yep. So I think we have a lot.
Duxbury's 20,000 square feet. I don't think there are any 20,000 square foot lots. There might be 1 acre lots, half acre lots. I don't
But I
know.
think there are a lot of examples here of triggers that we can create this to be I don't want to say a super narrow use case, but it will create this so it's not having that counterintuitive effect that you mentioned, Jer, of, knowing your neighborhood, the neighbor across the street, turning their nice 2,500 square foot home into a 3-unit apartment building on their little postage size lot.
I'm
the funny part is I'm in a neighborhood where this already happened.
Right,
So there's zones and sections in,
and then unhappened, right? on
in
some of them.
unhappened, but then if you get over like Blaney Street,
Mhm.
if you get along, Reddington Street, there's many multiple family
Yeah.
houses there, that have been here for years. The, I am not like opposed to this.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of how this can go south in town meeting
Yeah.
if it is not done in a way that people, you know, this is an incredible trigger for NIMBYism.
Yep,
And it's just a case where I think people are more, would be more resistant to this than ADUs being built in yards. Like the backyard getting a little building put in it. I think you're gonna have as many people that are gonna worry, especially if we go like with larger numbers of units. Sort of that increasing the human density of it might trigger it. But I think it's, by no means, I'm like asking questions, but,
Yeah.
I think it's doable with study and very careful crafting.
Yeah, I do too.
so what's the use case here, and what are the regulatory triggers we can kind of put in here to help alleviate that? I think that, for example, unit count tied to lot size, not suggesting we employ that, but that's an interesting trigger for,
It should be, because, I mean, it makes it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
like
We
those.
could actually do a lot size analysis.
Yeah, we talked about that, yeah.
And to see where that, it might actually, you know, potentially even be possible.
Right.
You know, what areas of town this could be happening, things like that.
Mhm.
I mean, Elmwood Road's a good example. I mean, some of those lots are a little bigger, but still, you know, it's
But a lot of them are
still.
still postage
But
size.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
irony is,
yeah.
like on Elmwood Road, one of the houses that has a huge double lot is also multi-unit already. That's the one that has a carriage house and then a separate three-car garage.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
Behind it. So that is one example of a very large lot. The house to the right of that is the one that's currently for sale, and that's a two-unit, very, very large square footage. Good sized lot, good amount of parking, but like established. But then there are a number of houses, there is a two-family across the street, and it has a driveway that has tandem for 2 cars, and that is, it was an 8-bedroom and a 2-bedroom. And it's
That's a
been
combination.
modified down to, well, one unit, they're side by sides, and then one had the top floor
Yeah.
with it, that was dormered, and there were 5 bedrooms on the top floor.
Oh, my God.
So, you know, but that one has,
Bizarre.
one has tandem, 2 spots tandem for 2 units. So
Oh,
they are street parking and then having to
Which
relocate.
is why I brought up the tandem thing earlier. It's so confusing to me that
Yeah.
we
It's also
allow
if
that
you're
as two
sharing that
spots.
spot with someone who's not a family member per se.
Right, I
Well,
mean,
with the
it's-
guy in the other
I mean, and
unit,
you're yeah, you have to constantly switch around. I mean, you know.
you're gonna end up having somebody park
Oh,
on
it
the
was
street, 'cause
like
it's
that in
easier.
Boston when we had, you know,
Yeah, no, it's,
On Newbury Street, it was just-
it's a lot of places that it's common.
yeah.
So I think minimum lot size is something you put in here to
Yeah, I would
facilitate
have-
eligibility.
I'd have a minimum lot size, and then, you know, I mean, to me, it's, you know, I'm not comfortable going above 2-family. But, you know, I'd listen to what the rest of the board has to say.
This might be too much of a unicorn, but would you be comfortable with 3-family triggering the inclusionary zoning bylaw if the lot size for that third unit was more
Well,
substantial?
how can you do that? So, because you can't make that, how would you do that? So if it's let's say the owner wants to do it, and they want to convert their house to the 3 units, they're going to do the work to do that. Okay, maybe they have kids or who knows? They just want to, you know, they want to keep their home, but blah, blah, blah. And you're going to let them do it if they make the 3rd unit affordable?
Or they pay in lieu, yeah.
I mean, what's in it for them? Why would they do it?
They get the third, well, I don't think
Well, you know-
my opinion is, I don't think property owners are gonna be doing this. I think this is people who are gonna buy a property and invest in it and then sell it or rent it. I can't imagine property owners are gonna go through this,
Then I think that
because
that
otherwise they
argument-
would bill an ADU.
Yeah,
But I think that argument is why it should be too.
yeah, me
Because
too.
I think at the
'Cause
point that this becomes
that won't make
an
any sense.
investor flipping or,
Right.
you know,
This is all gonna be investor flipping. I would be shocked if anybody else,
but,
right? Just
but
an
I,
ADU.
And they're
but I
just gonna
think,
be two enormously expensive units. It
yeah,
just-
I think
Right.
realistically,
But isn't that better than one enormously expensive unit? Enormously,
no,
even more
Not
expensive unit?
really.
no, because all it does is increase our population without increasing affordable housing. So what are our goals?
To increase the housing supply, because that's why we're in this crisis to begin with, because we don't have enough housing units.
But the thing
And
is
we're
though,
told that we need to permit 25,000 new
But if-
housing units a year, and we've been.
Yeah,
We
but if-
can't,
but
we
if
don't
we
have the
end up-
land. What are
but
we
if-
gonna do,
Hold on.
build out in the ocean?
I
No, but
understand that we don't, but we have the ability to control our growth through things like this, or not, and just continue to have high-priced homes that we. throw
I
hands
don't know,
up
I
about.
still, I mean, I can't look at saying a house on Atlantic Avenue turned into 4 really expensive condominiums is going to somehow open up affordable housing in our town. I don't see it, and if you're basically saying this is going to be attractive to developers, all we're doing is pushing our housing prices up, not down. And I don't
That's
see value.
counterintuitive to like the general supply and demand argument about
It
housing to
is,
begin
this
with.
isn't supply and demand.
Well, yeah,
is.
because
We don't have enough
say that all
supply,
the
though.
time, and then we just have, all we have is, we build apartments and we just have more expensive apartments.
Yeah,
More
I-
expensive apartments is better than less apartments that are driven up even higher because we have a high demand.
Well,
And
they
that's
can
what
live- I mean,
MAPC tells us, that's what the state, that's what everyone tells us, and I'm not saying we
but
should go
why-
build everything
Why are half the
everywhere.
apartments along Revere Beach empty? All those buildings say for rent, for every single building says for rent, and
because they're $4,000, $5,000
they're a
a
fortune.
month.
They're a fortune, and that's what
But
you're gonna,
there's broader conversations about why those are probably available than we're gonna get into in Swampscott.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of units out there, even the Shipwright on the Linway, the one across the street in back of, used to be some restaurant or.
Right,
I
the
really
porthole.
don't think we have a housing crisis for the rich. I'll be frank with you, I don't think that that's.
I think
the
there's a
problem.
housing crisis for everybody, regardless of how much money you have, and that's why we're in this problem to begin with.
Well,
That's what
but there-
everyone has told
It's not just
us.
that we're not making enough houses, it's that the price of building, the price of land is too expensive, the price
Yeah.
of building
That's-
supplies is too expensive.
But I-
The price to
I-
construct a home.
I just
completely
think
You don't
agree
have
with
like
all
what
of
they're
that.
doing in
If
Sweden
you're having a
with
hard
modular
time on the
housing.
committee with that as a selling
Hold on.
point, what are we going to do at town meeting?
With all due respect, Angela, I think you just made the point. We are having a hard time producing housing because the cost of land is too expensive and the cost of construction is too
Right.
expensive.
How do we bring that down?
You share the cost of land acquisition and construction acquisition across multiple units on the same property. That's how you divide the acquisition and the construction costs across multiple units. And it's the same thing why someone with a special permit for an
But they're
8-unit
not
parcel
gonna
in
be
A1,
any-
A2 is able to do it because we're able to attribute that cost across 8 units rather than 1. And that's the same thing I'm proposing we think about doing here, is that we're sharing those costs
But how does it
among
help
broader number of
anyone?
units.
It just gets people, what I see is people get trapped. See, I understand, theoretically, that makes sense. Literally, that makes sense. What doesn't make sense to me is now you have, instead of having, that it's not, this is not gonna matter. The people that are looking for that type of apartment, they can get an apartment anywhere. They're not house-starved. They're not. So we're not creating the kind of housing that we actually need for people. I feel like we get people trapped in these uber expensive rental situation, and they can't get out. They can't, you're spending $4,000 a month on rent. How the hell are you gonna save any money for a mortgage ever? When, an apartment costs over $1 million.
10 years ago, don't you think we would have this, do you think we'd be having the same conversation if 10 years ago they were proposing the same sort of thing? If 10 years ago they made more housing units, that we'd be saying, oh, they're $1 million units still, 10 years later? Isn't that why we're in this exact problem? Because not enough units were permitted in the past, so now we're trying to permit it now. And it might be too expensive now, but in a year later, it's gonna be less than the new units they're permitting then, and a year after that, it's the same thing. So are we just gonna continue to say, okay, we're only gonna continue to permit this type of house in this single way, and we're not gonna permit anything else or allow for any type of other housing to be created? Because then we're just perpetuating the same problem. And we're gonna sit here respectfully discussing how housing is too expensive, but we're not doing anything to allow development that will reduce the cost of housing over the long term. And I agree,
I
these are
think
probably
there have to
$1 million
be-
units tomorrow.
Yeah, but I think there have to be incentives considered to encourage a type of development. And I mean, just opening this up, I think what we do end up doing is we open up a situation where we are not having homes purchased up by individuals, we have them purchased up by developers that are looking to turn a profit, that are creating more expensive housing. So is this, I would say,
Because they have to acquire it
I
at
would
this
go with
price.
you on this, that we said, but if you turn your house this way, it has to be affordable housing. And then what do
It
we
has to be
have?
affordable housing. And then you would get none of this done if you were requiring this to be all inclusionary
No, no,
zoning. You're
but
not gonna
I'm-
have anything done, because
but I'm
you
saying-
don't make a profit. on
I'm
that.
saying this is the thing that's difficult about it, is like, I am not completely, I know that these reports are out there, I'm just not positive. There's always reports out there. Addressing this this is standing, right,
Mhm.
in A3 and A4 by right. And yet it's not happening. So if we am I understanding that, like, we do not see a lot of conversion from single family into multiple family in A3 and A4 in our town?
It's by right, so it doesn't really come before us for special permit.
No, but I think we need to look at how much of this is happening in A3 and A4
I think Krista can pull that
to,
next.
Yeah.
to have an understanding of it, like, okay, so is this, we do see things like, the house that we looked at off of Burpee that is being demolished, and we're getting a 2-unit house there, we're seeing things like that, but,
The one on Pittman that we just got,
Mhm.
and
yeah.
the one on Pittman, yeah, so it is happening,
Right.
but,
And that we only
Yeah,
saw
we
because
can-
of the square footage trigger, not for
Right.
any other reason.
yeah.
Right, understood, yeah.
But the thing that I think that before we try to bring this in town meeting, I think
Mm-hmm.
just as you said on the last one, we have to be really cognizant of what we bring to town meeting, so that people aren't like, ah! And I mean, it sounds like I'm reacting that way. I'm not. I am reacting like I am not finding this to be convincing, and I'm trained in architecture and I work in residential work. I'm somehow saying we are somehow mending the housing crisis in town by allowing this in A1 and A2. I'm
Yeah,
just not.
I don't think I would ever say that we're mending
I
housing
have
prices.
a few thoughts on that.
Good.
And, today, this is all just for discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole point of having this conversation tonight. And by the time any of this gets to town meeting, it will be completely flushed out. And also, I think we have to think about how we're going to frame it, right? That's really, really important, because leading up to town meeting, we would want to do community engagement. We would have, all of that agreed upon before we even start that part of the process. So it's, how are we introducing this topic to people? And whether that's, people who are aging in place in Swampscott, are in these larger, older homes, and, they're upset because their children, who are millennials, can't afford to live in Swampscott. So introducing those smaller types of housing that you can buy. Things like that. It's a way of framing it that, is something that, everyone can agree with. And that is a way to tackle an issue that people are facing here.
And I think a lot of people are excited about the ADU prospect. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm working with people right now that with the ADU permission,
But
we're figuring out their carriage house being shifted.
But it's like the potential to buy you know, a two-bedroom condo in a house, you know, is a little bit different, because in ADU, you have the primary residence,
The primary,
secondary residence, so it's opening up more housing options
Yeah.
for
To
people.
all.
Yeah, exact,
Yeah.
to people who, you know, want to live in Swampscott, but, you know, there aren't necessarily options right now. And I'm not saying it's going to be affordable, nothing is really affordable these days, but it's opening up more types of housing options for people, you know, who want to live in Swampscott. So it's a way of framing it, and that's something that we would definitely agree upon, you know, before this even would be put, you know, in front of the public. And we would agree upon, you know, as the board, what would be recommended, if it's square footage, if it's allowed unit. And that goes with any of the things on this list. You know, they would get completely fleshed out before we started doing community engagement leading up to town meeting. Because that's really important. You don't want to put something up that people have potentially never seen before, and then they get surprised and react. So,
Well, with town meeting, there will always be
Yeah.
people that haven't seen it before because they haven't been watching.
yeah.
Right.
And, you know, that's always, it's interesting to see what we can get through town meeting and what we don't get, and we being any committee
Yeah.
that brings stuff up for the bylaw, because if you have an articulate, misinformed person in town
That could
meeting,
derail.
that could be
Yep.
derailed. So I
Right.
think we just really want to be on top of.
And when I was not suggesting the Swampscott was gonna solve the housing crisis. I was not gonna suggest that this is doing that. On this board, I can have that open-ended conversation, but to me, what this does is this is smart growth, and this is controlling the growth, rather than allowing the growth to be done however it wants. Because that's what we've kind of had, is growth happens without strict standards, and we've got
Yeah.
the multi-unit buildings that we all talk about off meeting, lamenting the design and saying it looks
Right.
horrible, why do we get it? This allows us a very strict regulatory way to
Within the-
do that
Yeah.
without being, in my opinion, overly, it regulates something very strict but allows for something very specific.
So what
Let
I,
me ask one more question on
Yeah,
this
go ahead.
topic. When this is done, the examples are historically preserved houses. Is there a way for us to then, because we except inside the historic district, we have very little control on the aesthetic. So with these, I didn't see it in here, but I mean, are there controls that we can basically monitor
With
what the
design
building
guidelines.
itself looks like? Because
well, I thought we said without any, you know,
Exterior modification.
right, exterior modifications, but one thing, that
I
brings
hate
up
to say
another
this, but
point.
a lot of that is impossible in doing this.
That's what I was just gonna say. So how many times have we seen, well, over the years, I mean, have we come across any kind of, you know, rehab, whether it have been, you know, way 100 years ago, we were talking about Greenwood Avenue, or a lot of the historical stuff that came up where, you know, White Court, anything you can even think of where people say, it's too expensive for me to keep this, you know, outside shell and gut the inside and then have to rebuild the plumbing, the heating, all the separate stuff, and have to literally kind of reconfigure everything inside, you know, a very prescribed envelope that, right? It makes the construction way more expensive. And that's why we, you know, nobody wants to do adaptive reuse for the same reason, because they don't want to deal with something old. So I feel like that's, you know, it will make the building of it even more expensive. Because, you know, no one who actually wants to do it to preserve the outside of the house is gonna bother doing it.
But I mean, it's just a case where I think that has to be, we have to figure out how to really
Yeah.
secure that, because even with the guidelines that we gave on the property on Humphrey Street, they haven't followed the plans.
Well,
They,
have no worries, they'll be before us next month, so.
Who are you talking about?
the one near the. police
491
station.
Humphrey Street.
Yeah,
Oh, that, yes.
I mean, it is, the elevations aren't followed.
What's that?
No, everything's off. Looks, to me, it looks like everything's off.
There's no trim on windows, there's
Conversation.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
yeah.
And but you know, I mean, they never were gonna do that. It was always gonna be too expensive and,
Yeah.
Well,
But
they will be coming before us, I think, in the very near future.
on what topic? Expanding it?
Their site plan special permit mandated they come back within 12 months if they did not start phase
For a
2.
development impact statement,
Right.
administrative review, so it'll be on the
Yeah.
agenda.
yeah.
Back to the exterior modification, I think the intent of that is more so you don't have two front doors on a building that didn't have two front doors on it before, things of that nature.
That's gonna happen here too, right? Everybody's gonna want two front doors now.
Well, you would just have to mandate that you can't do that. That's what the intent would be, or the thought would be, right? Because you want it to look and feel like a single-family home, not two-family or whatever size home. I don't know how that works on the internal. I know there's diagrams on here of,
Yeah. Well, it looks like they have this single thing, but then it got gutted and they split it up that, I mean, it's definitely gutted. But
oh,
just,
it'd absolutely have to be.
Yeah, but this is a nice, neat little box, and a lot of them aren't gonna look like that. Well, maybe. I could be wrong about that, actually. I'll take it back.
All right.
So for next steps here,
Yes.
is it worth Krista pulling zoning from other towns, specific zoning language
Best practices.
of best practices?
Yeah, I'd like to see that, if we can.
Yep.
And
Thank you.
maybe we can also grab more specific examples. I know I told you I'd help you.
Yep.
We'd work on that, but
Yeah.
We've got,
My life
there's
got away from me
there's
this week.
Abington, Gloucester, Holden, Portsmouth.
What about the inventory of what, how many lots are over?
Yeah.
we're hoping to get that soon.
Yeah,
It's a broader
I'm waiting on the
conversation.
software,
There's
to be
subscription
able to do that,
costs that we have to
Well,
figure out
that's
how to
great.
but
pay for.
it will be possible,
That would be
hopefully
fantastic.
soon.
Yeah,
How many lots are over?
Some number?
We're gonna,
That's what
Well,
I can figure out.
what I'm
How many
hoping to do
non-conforming
is,
lots, how
what I'm
many-
hoping to do is have the ability to say, X amount of lots are between 0 and 2,500 square
Yeah.
feet, X amount are between
Yeah.
25 and
Excellent.
5,000.
Yeah,
All the
excellent.
way up to 20,000 plus.
fantastic.
I'm speaking naively here, but we already have that from Patriot Properties.
I don't know
I
that
don't
they'll pull it up by value, like, or,
Lots are there, so if you sort or take an extract somehow, like that's.
yeah, that I don't know. I don't know how the,
I can
Well,
see if
Patriot,
there's a
I
way to
think-
do it on
You
like,
can check, I didn't see there was an
Interface
export, but,
continued, we use what, CAI now or something?
no, I thought we still use Patriot.
We still have the old Patriot card, but it's, when you go into the GIS, isn't it CAI? Yeah. So you can look at the old Patriot property card, but that was the kind of old.
yeah, you can look at the
Yeah.
assessor's data in here, but you can't, I mean, you can do like the notification
Yeah.
buffer, but you can't really do.
With GIS, you'll just be able to pull the
Analysis.
state
Yeah.
assessor
Yeah,
database
right,
and filter
right.
it by lot size.
Yeah, I would be able to go in and see
Yeah, you'd be able, yeah.
like all of the.
I got halfway there before my chat GPT kind of gave up on me on figuring out how to do
Ah,
it.
good for you.
But
No, it would
you'll
be.
do it with your eyes closed.
It
for
would be,
sure.
yeah, it would be simple to do.
But that ability to do that for this purpose is really
Be
helpful,
huge.
but for 1,000 other purposes, it would be
Yes.
even more helpful.
Yeah,
For
agreed.
not only us, I'm sure historic and zoning and
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
boards with
I am also gonna make
What's
just
that?
a quick comment.
several
Yes.
$1,000s.
I'm looking through here and
Several.
there is only a few of these examples that deal with minimum lot size. And I think there's a really good reason for that, because I think we could be setting up some substantial inequities as to the value of real estate based on lot size. And what I mean by that is, myself and my next door neighbor, our lot size does not hit 10,000. They're very, very small. If that immediately rules us out of being able to subdivide our houses and sell them off as condos, we are at a disadvantage property value-wise over others. Now, our property values are already slightly lower because of our lot sizes.
Yeah,
But at the same time, if this really is about something like the family house and a way for people to keep it, if this is our motivation, and then we throw in a lot size, and then we have someone in town meeting that's like, wait a second, you know, like, we have to be really careful. I do like the fact that they talk about it by, like Cohasset, district by district, minimum
Yeah.
lot size requirement
Yeah, I think
increases
that's
as units are
important.
added. So
Yeah.
I think that sort of having some flexibility and not an arbitrary number, because
Right.
whatever number we have, lot sizes do not come in round numbers.
That's true.
So if we set 10,000 and someone has a 10,003, or a
9,999.
the reverse, 999, oh, sorry, you're out of luck, because it's in the bylaw.
Right.
I think we need to maybe just really think
We
about
should think about that, 'cause I hear,
density, think
yeah.
about, maybe distance between property. There's gotta
Yeah.
be some way that
I think
is fair. I
have-
don't think either of those are either.
I think we have an existing distance between multifamily properties in the bylaw somewhere.
Yeah.
80 feet?
40 feet.
40 feet?
On the,
Oh.
between multifamily properties, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's also a number of people per square foot too from the, what's that?
But so if you've got the distance thing, if I've got a multifamily unit next door to mine, I'm not
True, yeah.
allowed to benefit from this because of someone else's situation, not my
Right.
own. I think that it would be hard to defend in court.
Yeah.
I think what you brought up before about the lot size and you being ineligible for having a lot
Yeah.
size, that is unfortunate, and I would be too, both on my property, but half of zoning is like that. If you live on one side of the street, you're in A1, you live on the other side of the street, you're in A2,
Yeah.
you're automatically ruled out of a dozen different opportunities, and I agree with you, but then we're getting into a conversation of is zoning even fair to begin with because of things like that, and
Then you look at Houston.
I don't know how you have that conversation in a town meeting
Well,
productively.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
but that's why I think lot size will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. You know, it's like, there's ways to present how something is going to function. That if we are so restrictive, are we eliminating the ability for people to be creative and, you know?
Why
Well,
don't-
I mean, you could always put in a thing about like, just, okay, for a lot size, okay? Between this size and this size, and then we could say that we reserve the right to grant waivers in the event we decide that the purpose of, is
X,
the
Y, Z,
bylaw is best served by doing this, that kind of thing. And we can grant ourselves the waiver thing. But, under rare, we can make it sound like a variance, like under rare circumstances, the board can, grant a waiver so that we can, but we should have that flexibility. If we're going down this route with the,
I would propose, I agree with that. I would propose that we look to some of the other towns mentioned here and just others that we can look to and pull
yeah,
best practices from zoning, and also any imagery or plan set they might have of permits issued under that zoning. That's possible and not too strenuous to pull, just for real-life use cases of this. And I think that would be great. The things that I think we should think about is lot size waiver, minimum lot size waivers, unit count, tying unit count to lot size, not tying unit count, period. And then inclusionary zoning, which may not work here, but I noticed there was one example here that had unit size changed if it was inclusionary, rather than unit count.
okay.
So I haven't thought about that other than just
Okay.
reading it here, but that was an interesting thought. Maybe that plays a role.
So that makes a lot of sense if a developer has purchased a house and they're
Yeah.
gonna do that. I mean, if they're buying it specifically, they're gonna outbid someone else on a single-family house so that they can put a bunch of units in it and flip it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that, I don't know, is that,
It was just a way of looking at it, instead of unit count, it's unit size.
Yeah.
And how, do
Okay.
you allow a bigger unit size if one of the units is smaller, but it's deed restricted or something? I don't
something, yeah.
know. things to think about perhaps for the next meeting.
And I also thinking about I personally think Duxbury's principle, at least 10 years old for the restrictions on age, instead of picking years.
Yeah.
Because then it moves with the calendar,
Mhm.
and there's no real
Pick a
reason.
fixed date.
If the main reason for that age restriction is so people aren't building multifamily units, then 10 or 15 years makes sense. No one is gonna build it and then sit around and wait.
Well, this is to,
Right,
this is
I
to,
agree.
to kind of, reconstruct an existing home, right? So it's just not to, right, so have it and then say, a quick, next year I'm gonna flip it and we'll
Yeah.
do this.
But when it's like 1963 in
I
this
know.
district and 1955 in this district, I think we
I
could
know.
set a time zone, a time area
Yeah,
that
exactly,
is like,
so many years old.
that, and then people could then
Yeah,
age into it, you
it
know,
moves
so.
with time.
So what would you what does that look like in practice, in theory? In
What
practice,
is-
in theory, what are you suggesting?
That we
Oh,
say a
at least
10-plus-year-old house.
Oh,
or
so
5
exactly
plus-
like what Duxbury did.
Like what Duxbury did is logical, so that
Yeah,
we don't
agreed.
have we don't want something like our, what is it, the 90-day demolition, where it just
9-month
gets
demo,
built, the 9-month
Right.
demolition, it just gets built into the process. You're not gonna build 10 years into an investment
no.
process.
Right,
Agreed, okay.
Yeah.
I misunderstood
Right.
your first sentence.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is if we start saying, like some of these, I don't know the reason it's pre-1955, like what's
I
the difference
know.
between a 1956 house and a 1954
I don't know.
house?
I'm with you.
So if it's something that moves with the
Mhm.
calendar, it makes sense, and someone could be in a house 10 years, and
Right.
maybe they built it when they were 60, and now they wanna have their kids move in, and it makes sense to do a subdivision.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, I agree.
Still don't see why they don't just do an ADU.
Because it drops the 900 square foot limit
And the utility
and the utility requirement.
being separate.
Yep.
And because they can also sell it off,
Right,
because the ADU will remain with
With
the
the
principal
principal.
property, and this does allow for condoing.
I,
So,
we'd have to put in all,
and I
different
will say
stuff for
that having
parking
moved,
and.
having
yeah.
moved here from San Francisco, we do have to give thought to that too, because that does force housing prices up, when you have the ability to condoize. And so we had very strict limitations on condoizing. You can't buy a building and then condo it and sell it off at an even higher price, and as a condo gets sold, it's less likely to be rental. So there's a bunch of other things that, we need to be cognizant of. I'm not saying that that's what would happen here, but there are reasons that opening that can of worms can be problematic. The other question that does also become, when you create a unit like this, what are the differences between converting a house? Like, a lot of these houses that were converted post-World War II, they put up stud walls and they plastered and they closed this door and blah, blah, blah. Great. There are also a lot of issues around firewalls.
mhm.
And that is, like, if I own a condo and it's half of a house, that firewall starts in the basement and marches all
Right.
the way through to the roof.
Wouldn't
The
that have to be a
roof.
building code? Wouldn't that be part of building code?
It's building
I don't
code,
know, I
but-
suppose it is, right, but.
but it is a case that, it is
What, yeah,
a
what I,
small thing to do.
what I think we need to do, right, if we're deciding to move this forward, would be have a meeting, like a session with Rich and with Fire and with everybody who would be, putting this into practice
Right.
and making sure we get, their notes and their opinions, because they're gonna be the ones enforcing it on their end, and they're gonna
Yeah.
know, what they're gonna be looking at and what might be like a common problem that we see, whether it's egress or it's other things. I think we would need to
Yeah, I think it would just be based on your
have a
experience.
session with them.
Yeah.
Right, based
to
on your
flush out all
experience in the
those
other zoning
things.
districts, when a house gets converted from a single to a two-family, how would that apply elsewhere?
And talking about just even the things like assigning addresses and the
Yep.
questions that came up on that one that
Yeah.
was up off of Berkeley
Yeah.
as to like what's okay here, And especially if our
That was
goal is to
a good
keep
thing
it
to
looking
learn.
like a single-family house.
Right.
How do you do
If
that
they want to
and have an
expand
obvious
parking
address?
and stuff like
You know,
that.
I like this very subtle 15, 17 on
Mm-hmm.
the cover, that's awesome. But, you know,
Yep.
realistically, there's a lot of pieces to it, so I think that would be very important.
Yeah, I think just so we, you know, have covered
Mhm.
all the details from the whole process, because, you know, they'll be seeing these coming in, you know, if we.
I would also think that
Get it passed.
any building, subject to, well, they'd have to get a special permit to do this, should also be subject to site plan to some degree, just,
To what?
site plan.
Second.
Yeah,
For those
Well, because
exact
it-
issues that Jared just mentioned, just, I know it's probably building code, but just to ensure that it matches.
eyeballs on it, yeah.
And they want to, I mean, if there does have to be another egress cut into it somewhere,
It's done the right
you
way.
know, where's that going to be, and what's it look like, and what about the parking, if that's going to change, they want to reconfigure parking, I mean, I think, you know.
There's a number of
there'd be
things that
A
would,
lot to look at. What about, you know, are there now going to be 3 separate AC units outside, I mean, how, you know,
yeah,
there'll be more utilities and stuff like that, whereas, you know, is there bike storage, or any kind of, you know, storage space, garage, this and that? Things that we wouldn't even think about with a single-family home that would become an issue.
Yeah,
But a lot to chew on here, that's for sure.
yeah.
I wonder if they didn't put those dates in there because they're really targeting the older homes to get, that they're really targeting people that are living in older homes and are feeling like the house is too big. In other words,
No idea.
weren't they saying it had to be
Residential district's
55?
principal predates 1952.
Yeah,
Business
52.
district's
Predates, right.
principal predates 1963.
right, so they just want, I guess, older homes, but I don't even know why.
No, I don't either.
Maybe there were
Might be-
zoning things that came in.
I was
and
gonna
it
say,
was-
maybe
Yeah,
it's a
maybe.
district that has a
Yeah.
historic housing trend in
They
that
might
area. or
have-
Hingham
something.
yeah.
picked 41.
So, and that might, well.
It could just be housing production trends in the years prior to that, in those specific districts.
Yeah, interesting, but, I mean, I don't know why they did it, but it's kind of, there must be I'm guessing there's a reason.
Krista, does that give you enough stuff to kind of think about?
Yeah,
Till next month.
yeah, absolutely.
You
So-
sure you don't want any more stuff to think about?
I mean, there's
Come
lots
on.
more to think about there. Maybe
There
many
is.
more things
I would suggest, out of
on this list,
respect for everyone's time,
yeah.
we table
It's fine.
cottage and sign bylaw.
Yeah,
Short-term rentals, I'm thinking might be a quick conversation.
whatever you like,
My,
whatever
my,
you'd
my
like to
gut
do.
on short-term rentals is, I don't know yet if, I still don't have a concept of zoning is the right application for that. I know there are some towns that do it by zoning, and there's a lot more towns that do it by general bylaw.
It probably should be general, because it shouldn't have to change, and it should not be run by us. I mean, it
No.
should be a select board thing.
Yeah.
I would agree. I don't really think this is a planning short-term rental thing. I think that's a
Yeah.
permitting.
Well, the places that seem to do it through zoning, from my cursory look at it, did it to regulate where it can happen. And I'm not sure that is a good thing for us to even
They're all
engage in
over
in
the place
Swampscott.
already, you
Yeah,
know.
well, I don't think we should, I'm not in favor of having that conversation through a zoning conversation. I don't think we should judge where a property is in
No.
terms of the Airbnb
Do
use.
are
don't
we
think so
being,
either.
There's other stuff that are more important to talk about.
are
or other
we
people's
approaching
jurisdictions.
short-term rentals because of housing shortage? Are we approaching short-term rentals because of complaints of residents to, like, why is this in front of us?
It was
I-
on the list.
I brought it up about a year and a half.
It's your fault.
I know. I brought it up about a year and a half ago. Someone had brought it up at a meeting at one point. I don't remember. It was
We
brought up about a year
started
and a half
working on
ago.
it like years ago, remember, I think it was, and then we tried to put something together when Molly was here.
Yep, that's what it was.
And then, yeah, we do have some kind of a draft somewhere, I can.
Yeah.
But
I can get my
what
hands on it.
problem are we solving?
I don't think it was,
It's a regulatory thing more.
my point of bringing it up was I didn't want to, I lived next to an Airbnb for years. It was the most miserable experience of the first 4 years I lived in Swampscott. And I called the building commissioner at the time, And he said, well, there's nothing really I can do.
We have no regulation.
Yeah, and my goal wasn't necessarily to like shut the kind person who owned the place or Airbnb down, but it was a two-family home that was being marketed and sold as 4 separate units and 4 separate short-term rentals, and it was a whole bunch of different issues.
Oh, so is it that having 4 units next door?
Mm-hmm. In a, I can literally,
I'm leaping
That's
back.
really,
And
that is so not fair.
I mean,
you know?
you've seen that house, I can
Yeah.
literally touch her house from my bedroom window, if I
Yeah.
lean out, not very, I don't have a big wingspan, so I'm pretty close to, well, regardless. So once that kind of sat in the back of my head, then when I got on the planning board, Molly had brought it up.
Yeah.
So my thinking was, let's think about if there's a regulatory pathway that, we don't want to limit it, in my opinion, don't want to limit it, but if there's
You
problems,
could
there's
have
at least a
multiple
pathway
short-term
to.
rentals in one building, I mean, there can be all, there's
So
quite
I
a few
guess my
things we could
question
do.
would be, in my view, that seems like it isn't, I still don't really see how that's in planning. I really think that that has to do with noise violation, it has to do with quality of life,
Right.
and therefore, selectmen looking at, you know, and I know that people are hesitant to
Well-
do things
No,
like that, but
The thing is, we need to,
think your
we
gut is
need,
right.
we need to be able to, I mean, whoever controls it, I think this is a worthwhile discussion to have, because we need to be able to find a way to address this. Now, you can say it's a select board, but how are they gonna pay attention? Who's gonna monitor? It's not gonna come up for them,
no,
where it's gonna,
it would be town law.
right,
So the way
And
So
that.
it would
then
have to
it
be
gets enforced
building-
by the police department.
The way,
Police, yeah.
the way that my parents own an Airbnb in Chatham, and the way that I believe Chatham does it is they have the building inspector, they pay $500 a year for a short-term rental license. The building inspector comes, I think, when you get the license, inspects it, says it's habitable, it's good for short-term rental, signs the license. Either every year or every 5 years, they have to come back and re-inspect. But it's done in Chatham, I believe, through general bylaw, not through zoning.
I think most places it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would be, just if you want it in the use table to regulate where it can be
Right.
based off of zoning. But everything else is typically in general bylaw.
That makes
like
sense.
Permitting and.
And I really loathe to
makes
have a
perfect
conversation of where they can happen.
I
That's
think
not
that
something
would
I
be
want to
an
engage in
I
at
don't
all.
think that makes any sense at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
No, so I don't,
We do have a short-term rental, we have
It's
a
a-
B&B bylaw,
Right.
and I think it's all zones.
Yeah.
All residential zones.
yeah,
And it defines short-term rentals. It does not really expressly talk about Airbnbs, because it's a
Yeah.
separate thing.
Yeah, that's not the same, like,
My recollection, we had this conversation, I think, last year. My recollection was there was some definition that made renting out your single-family, let's just talk about a
Whatever.
single-family house.
Yeah.
Renting your single-family home out on
Yeah.
Airbnb for a night, didn't match the definition of inns, B&Bs, motels, hotels.
No, so
Because of,
The B&B definition is very specific as to a B&B in your
room.
house.
a
would have to
room
serve-
in your house,
Yeah,
but I
right,
think the
right.
problem was if it was the whole house, there was something about the kitchen facility that made the definition
and serving.
similar but
food,
not
right.
identical.
Yeah,
You had to serve breakfast only, and you couldn't serve breakfast to the public.
right.
That's what's in our bylaw.
Right.
so Eastham has the same policies.
Yeah.
We have to hold we have a permit, it is on the refrigerator of the house, and it is inspected, and we just started it last year, so I don't know how often it is inspected. There's regulations, some of them are insane, because you can't make sense of them. And I think we have to be very careful. I don't think, they're not through planning.
Yeah.
But it is, and it is a revenue for the town. I mean,
Yep.
you're doing this and you're paying, there's taxes that go to the town for it, there's fees that go to the town. But it isn't in planning.
Is it generally agreed upon here that where this can happen in town is not a conversation we want to have?
I
Yeah.
absolutely agree.
Absolutely agree.
I think we can limit it.
Yeah.
Well, some towns, I think Salem did limit it, and then they banned it entirely, I think across town, through their zoning bylaw.
Yeah.
And that was in the last 6 years, they've kind of done all
And
of
I-
those things.
But I think.
I think they're a unique case with the
Totally-
tourism.
totally
I mean,
unique.
the tourism
Yeah.
issue
Yeah.
there, and it's,
Totally.
you know,
But that's an example of a place that did it, and then
Yeah.
undid it, and then did it again.
and I went to go to, I guess Manhattan doesn't allow it, because I tried to.
There's a
find-
whole article in the New York
Yeah, that
Times
makes
last week
sense.
about the underground Airbnb market.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, no, I was just,
So if-
I was shocked.
If we're all in kind of agreement on that, then I don't think it makes sense to continue the conversation.
Okay,
So that's why I thought it'd be a quick.
okay.
Yeah,
So, next month, we can continue, or,
Cottage, I want
Yep.
to table that. That'll be a long conversation that I don't.
Okay.
Or that'll be a more thorough
Cottage is
conversation.
what was supposed to happen at Atlantic Crossing where the temple was. That was supposed to be cottage, and then what we got was
Okay.
one of those
They're kind of big
houses.
cottages. Those
they're
are
Very
really big cottages.
Yep,
so we can talk
Yeah.
about signs next time?
next time.
I think signs
Because
is a
it's,
good.
that's, might be a long discussion
Yeah.
simply because we need some kind of design guidelines
Yes.
that I might email to Jer ahead of time.
well, have you been,
We have some stuff.
is there a slide presentation there on this?
I mean, it's just,
I would think we
a
should,
compilation of considerations that, Angela sent me, and that's it,
Okay,
just for discussion.
and I think it would be helpful for us to, I don't have a full concept of what will be on the October agenda, but I know all of us have a copy of this presentation in our emails, right?
Yes,
As of
if I
a couple
didn't
hours
send
ago.
it, I will send it to you
yeah,
guys right after this.
I did not see this one.
Okay,
no.
just
Yeah,
circulate it
this one
afterwards.
was,
And then ahead of the next meeting, we can kind of walk through it and then have a more informed conversation on the
You and I
three.
said that we would have a
TOs?
sidewalk.
Yep.
A sidewalk.
yeah, and I will say there are a few things, so anything, you know, if we were seriously considering moving forward, with the single-family, what did we call it? What are we calling this?
Single-family
Conversion.
conversion, yes.
That's a better way
Then-
to put it than,
We will really want to make sure that it is, a goal and action item in the master plan update.
Okay,
And mentioned at, you know, public meetings, so then
Yeah.
when we introduce it, it's not the first time people are hearing it.
Right.
And then it gives it more, you know, it's a better argument.
yeah,
when it's
we can
already
talk about it
Wasn't
under
that-
housing options. We just
wasn't
had
it
a
in
meeting.
the, I
But
think
same
that
with
was an
signs.
option in the survey that we just
Okay.
did, the master plan.
It was
Priorities
on
for
the
it.
priorities list.
There were 900 items on the priority list, so
Right.
I could mix up where it was, but,
It's pretty good, though. I mean, I think that there'll be a good way to work it in there.
yeah, great suggestion.
Yeah, so just making sure, in that
Yeah.
way, if we ever, for any reason, want to get technical assistance or funding potentially through someone, even MAPC, you know, since it's
a
tied into
master
the goals and actions
Right.
that they recommended, you know, it's more likely we'll
Right.
get
Excellent.
Good,
assistance for these.
good thought.
So,
That's a nice thought.
and Marzi also mentioned there may be some money left in the sign and awning fund that we have right now.
Oh,
So
good.
something to
Consulting
consider if we would do like an amnesty if we change the bylaws for any.
Right.
But we don't know exactly how much she'll look into it, so we can talk about
Okay.
it next month.
And she had mentioned too that at one point when I've been kind of, you know, harping on this for a little while, but she mentioned something about some kind of grant programs, whether they were for, you know, Main Street, you know, whatever,
Street
downtown
partnership.
signage, right, just stuff like that. Small programs that would cover a lot of stuff like
The
this.
Lynn Chamber probably, they have a Swampscott division, I'm sure they have some
Yeah,
opportunity or interest in having a conversation.
yeah,
Okay.
so.
Greater
it-
Lynn Chamber of Commerce.
It's such a mess down there. I was actually gonna take pictures to bring, and I thought, that's really not nice. I didn't wanna call people out at a meeting.
The one thing
Well,
that,
it's funny because the percentage of percentage of businesses with violations is got to be at 50.
oh, way,
Way
higher.
more.
Yeah.
I'd rather, be easier to count the people that are in compliance.
Yeah.
I-
Well,
the-
those are the
Much
photos
easier.
we need to take.
Yeah, the thing that you had mentioned when we first talked about this 3 years ago, Angela, 4 years ago, 3 years ago,
Yeah.
that has stuck
Wow.
with me, and I didn't notice it quite as badly as I notice it now, is the materiality of the signs. There are some signs that you might not like the black and gold, but that's designed really well,
Yeah.
good materials, and there's other signs that are less so,
It's
from a
piece of
material
sheet, little
perspective.
Thin piece of aluminum that they got spray painted with
Well, I
some letters
mean,
That
letters
stands
hammered
out to
on
me
it.
more than
But
anything else.
But it-
we've got to realize though, what goes into these bylaws is what we get out of it.
Exactly, which is
And
my
when you do
point of
something like
changing this
that,
finally.
If I'm opening a, a muffin shop and I've never had a business before and so forth, and I am handed something by the town and it says gold with black, it doesn't,
It doesn't say how,
and then.
anything else.
It's not as if that is going to, I'm gonna walk in and say, this is what I need, to
No.
whoever I'm told to go to,
Right.
and then you get
We all
whatever you
agree
got.
it's horrible, and everything, the
but-
colors, the
but-
the whole thing's
But the thing
terrible.
is that we need to get into depth, materiality.
We do.
All of that stuff.
Absolutely.
so
I have some very good examples.
It's a permitting process thing where you require plans, done by a sign
Exactly.
designer, so
It's reviewed.
people aren't making them at home.
But even the plans
then-
we get have been like little, sketches or pictures, and a lot of it doesn't, didn't come to us.
But one of the things that we-
Chock-a-block, like, some stuff comes here, some stuff goes to zoning, it doesn't make any sense.
But I think there's also the ability for us to have examples of like, what does a
Yeah.
signage package look
Right.
like? And
That's really
utilize,
smart.
utilize one that's like, okay, here it's showing the dimensions.
like that a
here it's-
lot.
Here are color samples, here are,
We do have appendices in our zoning bylaws that look like
Yeah,
they could use some new content.
yeah,
I've
that's a
seen-
really good
yes.
idea.
Quite the nice hand drawings, but we could use some,
Yeah.
this would be a good place to add a new appendix
Yeah.
to reflect, design.
Yeah.
I've looked at the zoning bylaws dozens of times, and I didn't even know we had an appendix until I went through and saw,
It's
It's
so
where the
funny.
dimensional table is. I
Yeah.
always look
Yeah.
for it in the
Right.
middle, and it's at
and
the.
you're like,
I know,
oh,
it's a funny
whoever drew
thing.
that has a very steady hand.
I
That's
know.
Drawn by dry pencil,
Funny, yeah.
so. All right,
Okay.
Oh, wait, before we finish.
Oh, we have to do a date.
Next month's
Right.
meeting date
Thank you.
is Columbus Day, so
Right.
we need to agree on a different meeting date.
Hold on.
So we can't do the.
So, right, we had the 13th, I
so
don't know.
that's the 13th.
What about the
And
14th, or you want to just push it to the 20th?
I guess my first question would be, since you have multiple committees, what is your availability?
So October 14th, there's a placeholder for open space and rec. But potentially, I don't know if that's confirmed, and potentially Marzi could be there.
can we flip this? What is the agenda, without specific property names, looking like for October?
As of right now, there's the one administrative review item
That's all that we're
that I
you're
know
aware
of so far. Doesn't
That's fine.
mean that.
We're still like
not gonna get
2 weeks
more.
away from the
Yeah.
deadline though, but I'm sure you
Yeah.
would have started to hear from lawyers or something if something was coming through.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, I haven't heard anything else. It doesn't mean it's not gonna happen.
I would be curious everyone's thoughts. I think the 20th I would like to move to the 20th. I just think giving a little more runway, if it captures one more project in October, that's one project off of November's agenda. But I'm open to your feedback and
It's fine with
availability.
me, I just, I just want to carve in some time to talk about the signs, because that's,
Totally.
Is there anything that we are rushing to have together for a special town meeting? Is
not
there a-
special, we wouldn't do anything.
There is, but we're
special.
not gonna do any.
Okay,
Next May,
good.
and if we just, we need time for that too.
Yeah.
And so that would be the 20th. Is the 20th better than the 14th?
Gives another almost week for applicants to get their applications in.
Okay.
We have our application cut off 2 weeks ahead of time.
Okay.
So it gives
Yep.
6 days, 6 more
Okay.
days.
And it
So that's
keeps
my
it on
point.
a Monday.
And it puts back.
But
the money.
is that publicized?
Mhm.
It also doesn't interfere with other meetings, because Monday's our day.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
Zoning's on Tuesdays?
yes.
Okay,
Yep, zoning's tomorrow.
okay, got it.
But,
Okay.
yeah, we don't have any meetings on the 20th, so
Okay.
if you
That was my,
do the 20th, that's open.
that was my thinking, Jer, if it gets, that 6 days gets somebody in our October meeting rather than our
Yeah.
November meeting,
Sounds good.
If we could cancel another meeting, you go on with it.
that would be the one to cancel, right before our holidays.
So, I don't know if you have to vote on that, or,
Do,
No,
okay.
We just need to agree on.
did everyone sign the Mylar for,
Yeah, well, I wasn't signing it
you
because I
didn't,
wasn't there.
you weren't there, but everyone else,
Yeah, they already,
all good? Okay,
It's good.
perfect. Motion to adjourn?
So
So moved.
Second?
Second.
thank you all.
We're out of here.